What's up, guys? It's Mifflin. We're hitting a little Miff interview. We're gonna go introduce ourselves to some of the Glaz players, one of the Ravens players. Let's talk to Hurry quick. Little beef on Twitter. Your ranked game's going a little tough recently. What's your opinion on some of the ranked players in the streets?
Yeah, I just think they should give up.
They should give up?
Yep.
Just be done with it?
Yeah, they're playing way too long to be as terrible as they are.
Fair enough,
Just
fair
give
enough.
up.
Yeah. Some of those ranked players, they've been losing to some MMR. Another ranked street hitter, Jake. How have the ranked streets been treating you recently?
They've been great. I love the ranked streets. Can't get enough of it.
Yeah, they're good, huh? Any players sticking out to you, non-SPL players that stick out to you as really someone to look out for?
Look out for? There's some fiends on the ranked streets. Like, we got the,
6.5 hours later.
we got, I'm actually drawing a blank, but like, yeah.
Not a single player is coming to mind.
All SMITE players are like really good, and yeah, I'll be there in no time.
Maybe we gotta hit the ranked streets a little bit more, guys. Come on, put in a little bit more effort. Oh, there they are. Looking as fantastic as ever. The Ravens coming in for their week 2. Yeah, looking so good. I don't even know how to end it. I don't know how he does it.
Don't touch that dial. It's the Highland Ravens going up against the Gilded Gladiators coming up next.
Welcome back, everyone. So we jump into set 2 of the day. Miff, how do you typically end those?
I usually just tell Jordan to scram. God, Bobby had a better career than me. He's going to be a better caster than me. He's already taken the Miff interviews, man.
Yeah, that's like the first one in ages.
I got nothing left, bro. I was casting. They could have came. I was casting. You hear me in the background.
Yeah, there's a cameo of you in the background of your own interview.
It's so messed up.
He didn't call the right name.
Dude, my favorite shot is him just like super fanboy, like next to the door, like, oh, there they go.
There they go.
The Ravens. I love those guys.
What I think is best or great about it was that Jordan came in and was like super stoked because he had found that like he had the camera again.
Yep.
And he was ready to use it, and you were like, yeah, so I'm casting. And he was just
he
walks in and he goes, anybody want to do a Miffle interview? We're like, okay.
Bobby's good at it, man.
So and you know what? He was sitting there before you. How do you think you're gonna like? I mean, look, you're talking about his interviews. You're talking like he's starting to cast. Like, are you starting to worry?
Yeah,
a little bit. Okay.
Every time Bobby comes into this building, my job security just trickles away.
Trickles away. Oh no, I don't think that's true. From my perspective, bear in mind I have no control over any of that.
I hope Hindu likes me.
We'll look at what's happening today and what's happened today as we move forward. Leviathans 3-1 over the Hounds. Ravens going to be coming up here against the Gladiators in just a few seconds. The Gladiators, Mifflin, last week were able to go 5 against the Dragons. Games 1 and 2, very much not in their favor. Game 3 was not in their favor. Then they turn it around. They make the plays necessary. They win that game. Game 4 was the one I think that they could really kind of hone in on. That's the kind of gameplay and style that if the Gladiators can consistently lock that down, it's going to look pretty good for them. But here, they're going to have a matchup against the Ravens and a matchup against the Kings. Both of those are in-division matchups. And then on top of that, they're not easy teams to take down. But with the Ravens last week going 0-2, maybe gives them an opportunity to mess with the standings right here and right now.
Man, the Ravens have had a tough go of it, right? They get the roster change coming into the first week of the SPL, immediately into a doubleheader, double loss. They hated it. They got the fans against them now. And now they're coming into another doubleheader week. I mean, these guys have just really not had a whole lot of time to spin up with their new roster. But the same could be said of the Gilded Gladiators. Sure, they haven't had as many doubleheaders, but have had more roster changes. And I think having your entire front line change up makes it very difficult to just, stick to what you've been doing. It's a completely different style of game.
And the thing that they're going to be facing I don't know. Both of these teams, it feels like they've got a lot of what you would want from a good team, right? I mean, you've seen Kyrmi. I mean, we've seen what Jake can do, right?
A lot of MMR cap players.
Yeah, and you've got these guys that are incredible and have really caused some upset. I mean, go to last phase, what the Gladiators knocked out the Kings and one important set for them. But then you go towards the Ravens, and it feels like a team that should still, in theory, have all of the power that it had last phase where they ended up going first. So I guess we'll just have to figure out how it feels for them, and then specifically how it feels for the Gladiators. As we learned in the Myth interview from at least one of them who is constantly hitting those ranked streets and is very aware of every player.
Yeah, none of them catch his eye, though.
Yeah, well, you heard what Hurry said, right? So it makes a little sense. We've got Awesome Jake standing by for an interview.
Thank you so much, Gore. We do have Awesome Jake, and now, I mean, you know, you saw in the Miffl interview, you had some time to think about it. Now you have even more time to think about on the ranked streets. Any players standing out to you?
Yeah, you know, I kind of got caught off guard there, so I didn't have time to brood and like think of like, you know, who I wanted to shout out. But now, you know, so we got Fordyce, Masters Fafnir player. He's very cringe, like hate playing against him. Who else? Moby, another cringe jungler who like he just picks Thanatos at like 5 a.m. or whenever I'm queuing and just like ruins my life. You got Rat Squid, another jungler.
Man, that is it's a lot of callouts. A lot of
Ravage player who plays Odin, the hot dog skin, and he just like spam jumps, and it's like he's on the sticks as well. So he does this thing where he like spins around, and it's like Xbox thing only, and it's like, yeah, it's funny, yeah.
Maybe if you're out there at the higher MMR, maybe consider your time on the ranked streets. You're making an impression for some of the pro players. In all seriousness, Jake, you guys in the Gladiators, you're new to this team, obviously had your first sort of run-in at the kickoff tournament, and then last week, you're going up against the Ravens, both of you looking for your first win. You guys feel like you took a lot away from last week in terms of how the meta's been faring and how you guys want to sort of gel as a team?
Yeah, I mean, the first game, that was just like, unfortunate. But, we have more time together, and we're really looking to get our first win here. Like, winning your first game is very important for, the rest of the phase and stuff. And we're looking to do that today. Dominantly.
A lot of confidence there from Jake. Now, I'll ask about the new meta, right? We got the 10.10 patch in not a huge amount of changes, but definitely some of those higher meta picks getting some small nerfs, and then some maybe buffs over to Guardian solos and to some of the more tanky characters. You guys feel like that's changed anything at all in terms of the tier list, or just maybe going with what you learned last week and what you learned in the kickoff tournament as for how you guys are feeling today?
With every patch, the buffs and nerfs, you really gotta like stay on top of it and make sure that you're like trying out the new gods and new picks. I think change them a little bit, but like the gods that were strong in the past are still gonna be like really strong going forward, and
keeping it clean there from Jake. Well, good luck in your set today. Hopefully you guys can pull out the win. We'll throw it back to the desk with Gore.
You get a lot of ranked. He's been thinking about that, like since that question happened.
He really has, and it's interesting that he has the polar opposite reaction of Hurry, who only had the worst, most heinous things to say about every ranked denizen.
Yeah.
Jake's shouting out names that I'm way too low elo to have ever run into. I've never heard the name Rat Squid before, but I will tell you there is an unprecedented amount of fear running through my body right now if I ever see that guy in queue.
You're gonna load into a lobby like 2 days from now, and you're gonna be like, wait a minute.
I've heard of this guy.
Wait a minute. I know this dude. I've seen him. Of course, Jake. Mifflin, I'm going to plug something that you had recorded with the Gladiators, and specifically with Jake. I'm looking at the thumbnail for it here. So for all of you out there, you can go to youtube.com/SmitePro. And the quote, it was the team check-in, I believe, where you just had Jake say, "I'm just so kickable. I guess that's my thing."
Well, fortunately, the Glads are out of kicks.
Yeah, they can't change that anymore. That one, about 40 minutes of a check-in. If you want to, learn more about the Gladiators, talk to the Gladiators, see stuff like that. You're also then going to be able to scroll a little more recently inside the SPL. Awesome Jake 408 and the Oni Warriors. If you want to learn a little bit more of the backstory, you got to talk to Jake, Genetics, a lot of the Warriors players as well, on how that roster swap went through and
worst transaction, player transaction in SPL history. I'll say that. That's your spoiler. If you guys aren't familiar with the situation, you haven't been paying enough attention, but you should check out that video.
It's 15.5 minutes. It's real good. And so again, that's youtube.com/SmitePro. While you're there, just yesterday, 22 hours ago, 21 hours ago, and 5 hours ago, in order. Team check-in with the Leviathans that was recorded yesterday. SPL Waiting Room, which I had fun recording yesterday, so y'all should check that out. And then a ranked ADC tier list with Panda Cat, so if you're wondering what you can play. I was also watching that short. I think we played it last week, the short that we recorded. I clicked on it, no audio, but I was just letting it play while the interview was going, which, oops, I shouldn't probably admit that out loud, but man, that was really funny content. And so just make sure that you tune in on that. They're going to be playing the Ravens today, and that is going to be an interesting composition and an interesting team, Mifflin, to go up against. Again, the Ravens come in, as you had mentioned, an 0-2 week to start things off, another doubleheader this week. Zap coming in for Bera brought some animosity toward the team. This guy has some opinions on ranked players. Feels like they've got maybe a lightning rod kind of coming towards them. Hurry, we managed to sit down with earlier in this week, though, and kind of talk to him about week 1 as well as what it's going to be like for the Ravens going into week 2.
We're feeling good. Obviously, we just lost a couple sets, maybe one expected, one not expected for us. But we feel like we know what we're doing wrong, and instead of making 10 plus major mistakes a game, it feels like 1 or 2. Unfortunately, the teams that we played this last weekend were good enough to punish us for just a couple mistakes, but we feel like we're making pretty significant improvements despite the record. We feel very confident going into the Gladiators. I mean, our team is always going to be confident no matter who we play. Obviously, the Gladiators are probably considered the worst team in the league right now. On the Glads, I think the player that I'm looking at the most is probably Kyrmi. It'd be Kyrmi or Snoopy, I think, but both of those, but especially Kyrmi is really volatile. His performances can look really good or really bad. So putting him on the back foot or getting him out of his comfort zone is going to be really important in beating that team. I don't think they're the worst team that's ever been in an SPL or anything crazy like that, but certainly we should have an easy time against those guys.
I like it. Tells it exactly how he sees it, right? Which is just straight up. They should feel confident. The Ravens, that is, should feel confident. I mean, you've got players with years and years and years of experience on this squad who've been playing, and some of them the top of their roles across time, right? You've got a lot of world champions that are sitting in there. And then when you look towards the other side, as Hurry had said, even despite the records right now, it's 0-1 for the Glads, 0-2 for the Ravens. One of those teams finished top of their division last phase, the other one didn't. And so he's kind of taking that into account and saying that they should, in theory, have that matchup.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to hear that he doesn't say, look, 3-2 for trolling, 3-1, 3-0. He said it should be easy. And I think that's very telling with not only his own personal opinion on the relative skill of the Ravens as opposed to the Glads, but even the Glads standing as a whole. Has a worse win-loss on the Ravens, but still says, look, we all think the Glads are probably going to be the bottom seed. So a lot riding on this set. The Ravens certainly never one to shy away from making haters or attracting a bit of distaste in that roster changes, maybe some smack talk here or there, maybe some tweets coming out from every member of this team that look one way or the other. But they need to back it up. It's something I had said a long time ago. I believe it was back in Season 7 with Sanguine when they were on their villain tear. The difference between a villain and a clown is that villains win. If you're talking smack and losing, we're just laughing, right? So the Ravens need to be able to back this one up.
And it's going to be interesting to see. Picks and bans, Game 1, Gladiators, Ravens. The Gladiators will be your first pick team here. And again, best of 5s this season, if you haven't checked in for last week or so far this week. All phase, best of 5s. So they've got to go the distance here. Bans immediately coming through from the Gladiators. Ganesha and Athena, third, about to be locked in. On the other side, the Cabrakan and the Olarun, who has been pretty high up there, as well as I think something Stu was going to decently often. They played it twice, locking it in at least in the top 3 in that Olarun. Raijin gets banned out by the Gladiators, Mifflin. And this does create a conversation. A lot of things. Chernabog, Pele was up there in terms of the 100% pick ban rate until very recently, where she's now disappeared. And it is going to be the Ares instead that the Ravens go for. So where are you going? If Pele, is she still first pick worthy in your mind, or do you maybe go somewhere else?
Feels like Pele has a little bit of flexibility, but with set available as well, you don't necessarily need to grab her first overall. They're pretty equivalent in output, so Looking elsewhere, we know that a lot of soul laners have been valuing that Amaterasu, so I'm not overly surprised to see that one locked in immediately. Doesn't necessarily have any really poor matchup, should be able to hold her own in the majority of lanes, and then has very strong initiation and scaling come late game. But this does leave available a lot of priority picks. I'm looking at the Guardian pool in particular. A lot of really strong picks there. Yemoja, Ganesha. You could take your choice of now either Pele or Set on the Ravens. Instead, though, eyes towards the soul lane themselves. Thought maybe we'd see Hades held onto just because the Gladiators do show their hand. Instead, grabbed first off. That's not to say that Hades doesn't have some flexibility. You could still send Ama solo and then pick up a Hades mid. Feels like that is a little bit weaker overall, though. And it is seldom we see that pick go there. Maybe the Ravens could have held off, but even then, you're not really opening yourself up to too many counter selections.
It was something Hades, at least, was one of those picks that, okay, is this some SOT flavor? Is this a pick that's good? Turns out it was a pick that was really solid. And very specifically, I think last week I was talking about it. I think Inbound has given it more of a blanket statement in matchups, but I know we talked about it a lot against an Ama and how Ama can have a very bad time into that matchup. So Haddix, presumably going to be looking to have a great time. You mentioned the Yemoja, but that leaves open a couple of these top picks. The Pele and the Freya get locked in for the Gladiators. And depending on the tier lists you're looking at, Mifflin, the Gladiators have a great top 3.
I mean, there are a lot of picks already in the first 5 selected that I would argue could all make an argument for first overall selections. Yeah. I do really like what the Gilded Gladiators have got. We do have flexibility from Pele, could be mid, could be jungle. Amaterasu almost guaranteed headed for the duo, soul lane, excuse me, and then the duo is Freya there. But I want to see a little bit more CC. Plenty of picks still available to the Gladiators to clean that up a bit. This is not something I could have ever predicted in third slot. Morgan Le Fay is a great pick, to be sure. I think that her poke is really, really strong. She's very, very good at self-peel. Dragonflight has good interactions into Pele if you're able to hold it out through Volcanic Lightning, wait for some of that CC immunity to go away, and then immediately peel out for yourself. But I just don't feel like Morgan Le Fay would have been a prioritized pick. I think it is unlikely that we would have seen it banned there either. That almost indicates to me that the Highland Ravens are either just completely all in on the idea we need to hold Scream's pick, we need to get him some counter selections, give him something they can run the map on, or it's more so a lack of confidence in just going for more high prioritized selections, things that we've seen other teams running more consistently.
And it's definitely picked. We've only seen, even scrolling down, like we've only seen it a couple of times, 3 games. This is including like kickoff and things like that, so it has not been a very common mid laner. And then immediately after picking it up, the Ravens ban out Ratatoskr, which is actually interesting because that's one of Lasber's better picks, as well as the Camazotz, which is something they've been able to find some success on. The other side, shoot down a few of the carries that could be locked in. It was Ram and Jingwei that got banned out, and so Zap cracks open what we've come to see is all reliable for him. It is the Heimdallr locked in through and through, and one that Mifflin, given his history, specifically Zap's history on this god, it's usually worked out for him. I mean, like, win-loss aside, he's had great lanes.
Yeah, Heimdallr very safe, decent scaling of the late game, all right ability to challenge CC immunity as well, forcing out those speeds at the ultimate. Single target, but anything from your non-initiators is just going to simplify the engagement for your front line. And looking at the composition that the Ravens have already built up, 3 magical in top slots, makes sense to me. Had it not been a triple magical lock-in for the Highland Ravens, I think that would open the door to some of those magical hunters that have been widely resurgent. Soul comes to mind immediately, and it's one that Zapman goes towards pretty consistently, but lacking for physical damage, the Ravens essentially restricted into that hunter pool. So the Gilded Gladiators play their second phase of bans very, very well there, just taking away the Jingwei and the Ram. But I loved past tense this Gilded Gladiators draft. I'm a major Huang hater, personally. Feels like that god really does struggle right now in a meta that Mike has been defining as crutch, just get pressure style meta, run it down, get aggressive, play through pressure in mid. Huang pretty good at that, levels 1 through 3, pretty bad at that, levels 4 through 9. As far as I'm concerned. But speaking of unorthodox, it's not just the Gilded Gladiators. The Highland Ravens with the Surtr, he's been buffed recently, and some of the items that we've seen are pretty decent, I mean, if you want to like Vital Amp Surtr jungle, play for scaling, you can actually get pretty aggressive throughout the early game. But it is not that hyper carry style pick that I associate with Scream.
I had to double check to make sure that I wasn't wrong. Like Ferryman colors, Ravens colors, they're kind of like close-ish to each other. At least that shade of blue.
Yeah, I almost started talking about Cyno.
Yeah,
I was like, what is Cyno up to?
what's he doing? Why is he here? When did the Ravens drop Scream for Cyno, and why did I not get alerted about that? No, Scream is gonna rock it. And like you said, like there's itemization that he can maybe work for it.
Could you imagine a world where it's Hades jungle Surtr solo? I think that
if we were on the Ferryman, you'd convince me pretty easily. I'd believe Cyno would play anything.
I think both those picks have similar value out of the jungle. Hades ganks are blanket better, I'd say. It's hard to say. I mean, we'll stick with the standard, air quote standard, when there's a Surtr on your team. I would say it is much more likely to be the Fire Giant in the jungle.
And maybe instead of like who's got the better jungle, who's got the better matchup against Rama? Like Hades should, right? It just blanket over on right.
Hades is going to be able to match sustain, but they both Ama and Surtr are boxing auto attack style soul laners.
Okay.
Surtr has a lot of self-sustain in kit as well, and the get out of jail free card of the ultimate. I don't think that either Hades or Surtr in particular is going to say, yeah, give me the Ama. I want that. Like that's what I do. But both are certainly very capable of holding their own in that lane.
So there's two gods I think that you throw out there. Admittedly, with the buffs to Surtr, maybe he's a little higher on the list, lower on the list. Of, hey, I wouldn't have expected that this week, right? And Morgan Le Fay, I think, is kind of in that conversation of Vin likes her. Heimdallr you could convince me of just because that's something. But it's definitely unorthodox, I think is the way to describe it. Though you had said, if we're looking not just at the Ravens, but at the Gladiators as well, not a huge fan of Huang. One of the wins that the Gladiators has is with Huang. So that maybe plays into some success for them. But also this Cerberus, very specifically, if you go back a couple of games, it was a very late pick for the Leviathans, but Fino-K looked kind of unkillable, unstoppable, couldn't do anything about him or handle him. Do you think that's something that the Gladiators are going to be able to do, I guess, from the support role, which instead of letting you answer, we'll just have to find out the old-fashioned way. Gladiators and the Ravens, game one. It's Frog and Trelly.
There are 3 remaining winless teams in the SPL Phase 2, and after this set, there will only be 2 remaining. You've got Frog, you've got Trelly, you've got Doug in the background, and we've got the Gilded Gladiators going up against the Highland Ravens. Bit of an interesting comp for the Highland Ravens. They predicted it right on the desk. You get this Scream in the jungle on the Fire Giant. And some other picks as well. I mean, I think Surtr got a small buff in 10.10. Heim got a little bit of a buff as well. Venenu on the Morgan Le Fay. Bringing perhaps some comfort into the draft.
Certainly so. I mean, we've seen the Surtr in the jungle a fair bit. As you said, the buffs are certainly going to help it out, but haven't seen too much success for that Surtr jungle, so maybe some extra damage online into a meta where there's a lot of full damage carries in the jungle, right? And from what I've seen, it's been a lot of, you know, you're not teching in any tank items more often than not, especially on a pick like Pele, right? Kyrmi is going to be going full damage, just trying to one-shot with that Volcanic Lightning, and maybe a sort of tanky pick in that Surtr can help you out in that dive, as well as just, you know, being another tanky frontliner for the rest of the comp, because Haddix is on the Hades, right? Maybe you need a little bit more frontline. Maybe this Hades isn't going to be able to pull off that much tank stats. So having a warrior in the jungle is not always bad. It's sort of a Cyno-esque role here for the Highland Ravens, whereas on the other side, the Gilded Gladiators, going with the double mage comp. Freya has been top of the tier list for a while in that duo lane. Just needs some space to get online, so I don't imagine too many sparks flying, but once Stuart gets a ring or two, maybe we'll see some aggression over in the duo lane from the Gilded Gladiators.
The space needed could be here early on, especially with this Cerberus pick. This one also got buffed recently in that 10.10 patch, and I thought we were going to see it a little bit more in the solo lane, which at this point we've seen it in both support and solo. Just already today with the Levi's liking this pick as well, but not something we've seen Jake on in the past, if I'm recalling correctly. But certainly this pick brings, you know, a couple new question marks. How are you going to deal with a Cerberus in a team fight?
I think that you know, the buffs help, as well as if you're into Yemoja, stealing away those heals is always going to be a good look. The extra anti-heal is going to help you out. And of course, once Screammmmm and Haddix rotate through, there's a lot of healing with the Hades and this Surtr as well. So just going to be a very nice, solid pick. Good lane pressure, good damage, all of which Cerberus has always provided. It's all about, can you hit Paralyzing Spit consistently, right? It's a bit of a skill shot to land that CC, and if you're not landing it, you've got to slow and that Stygian Torment, which is not always easy to be the sole initiator for some of these team fights. Interestingly enough, Screammmmm actually matched the rotation of Kyrmi to go to this prot buff, and is now looking for a bit of a fight, but this is usually not the play, right? We see one jungler go left, the other one that doesn't get pressure goes right.
Wow.
Snoopy taking a lot of damage.
Yeah, this poke coming through from Venenu. I mean, the mid lane matchup that we have not seen very often, to say the least. Both of these picks, I think, comfort picks for the respective mid laners. We've definitely seen Venenu on this Morgan Le Fay before. We've also seen Snoopy. He seems to be the only SPL mid laner routinely going back to this Huang. You heard on the desk, Mifflin, not a huge fan of this pick. Do you like this matchup for it?
Not too much, honestly. I tend to agree with Miff here, which is rare, but I will say in this case, the Huang is just very hit or miss, and most of the mid laners in the meta currently do not have to rely on their ultimate as much as Huang does. If Dueling Dragon, which is not always easy to connect with, is not getting value, you're losing a lot of that teamfight presence, whereas Morgan Le Fay has so much poke damage, so much range, so much self-peel. Huang, sure, he's got the self-banish, that's all well and good, but you don't have to rely on your ultimate as much as a Huang does. Now, if Snoopy's on point, we've seen time and time again where Dueling Dragon just absolutely wins a team fight and sometimes even a game. It's got that Scylla factor where you can just destroy someone, but it's all about, can you connect that back dragon? Can you actually make that big burst damage come through? And from what we have seen, it's not always easy.
Couple buff invades come through across the map. Hurriwind tries to take that one away. It is not successful. Meanwhile, I think they traded blue buffs, if I saw correctly. Junglers hanging out on the right side of the map over there. Interesting pick, I think, here, or it may be a dichotomy on the dual lane matchup. We talked about the 2v2, and obviously I think Freya, we've already seen her thus far today. We've seen her over the last couple of weeks. A pick probably a notably higher on the tier list than this Heim. But not only does Heim get some small changes, but this is a Zapman god through and through. I mean, he has been playing this pretty much since release on the character. And I always think of Heim as like a very hit or miss boxer, like
right.
Whether or not he really takes the fight. And Freya's sort of the same way. It's either you're all go, all W key, or sort of back off. So this could be a volatile lane once the supports decide to rotate out.
Yeah, I'm looking at the builds, and that's telling me that we're probably not going to see too much fighting unless Stuart is initiating with a full ring, or, of course, unless the junglers decide to get active. Zap should never be in a bad spot here. He's got his crystals to teleport out at any moment. But maybe Hurriwind steps too a little far up and gets himself in trouble with a gank. But yeah, I mean, Heimdallr, one of the safest hunters in the game for a reason. That Bifrost is just going to get you out of trouble really at any moment. The big difference for me here is the choice to go the Bumbas, right? If you are looking towards that Bumbas, as once again, Snoopy taking a lot of damage, Screammmmm just going to have to retreat out using that ultimate for safety. Because if you go Bumbas, you are prioritizing farm over fighting, right? Conduit Gem is going to buff your early game, whereas Bumbas is going to make sure your jungle clear is great. You can solo prot buff very easily. That shield is going to help you out. You can solo your purple. You know, you're waiting for Bumba's spear, so your Fire Giant Shred later on is up to par. So if you're not going to go that Conduit Gem, that tells me Stu's not looking for the early scraps. He went Telekines over the Hasten Ring as well, and that just confirms it. Sure, your boxing potential is fine, but you would rather have 2 rings before you look towards any sort of 1v1ing between Zapman. And since he's on the Heimdallr, I don't think he's going to mind that too much.
It seems like both teams not really favoring the early scraps here, outside of maybe just Venenu into the mid lane. He tries to get to going, but it's actually Kyrmi needs one more tick of damage. That was single-digit health, it looked like. No first blood, though, is able to be taken down. Hurriwind, though, you might receive it on this left-hand side. Into the ultimate goes Stu, looking to grab Hurriwind. Low health bar and a good whoop. Maybe secure the kill and will do so. The beads get burned, but Zap's looking to clean up. He needs a couple more autos and should get it through onto Stu. Needs one more tick of damage.
Oh, he hits those.
And he finds it. He always hits those. It's a 1-for-1 on the left side.
Wow, that was a lot of damage. You look at Scream going in for the invade. The ult's going to push him back, but can you find any damage onto Kyrmi? Doesn't seem like it, but Haddix has the rotation in. Pillars of Agony not going to have the range, and Snoopy and Kyrmi get to back out with their lives for now. Clutch rotation in, and Scream gets to ult out for free.
My goodness, the action all of a sudden just explodes, it feels like, across the map. First, she gets a mid lane aggression. Venenu has no interest in being passive here, wants to constantly be fighting Snoopy. And then for all of the lack of action, the waiting that they seemed comfortable with over in the left lane, at the drop of a hat, the ultimates come out. Zap comes away with a kill, and I think on the other side, it's the same, but the ADC falling, that's going to hurt Stu in the long run.
Oh, for sure. And I think Stu tried to juke out as much as possible. Not easy to make that play, but Kyrmi has a wraparound here. Zapman has mana for the Bifrost if he needs it, but it looks like a better target. It's going to be Hurriwind. The paralyzing spit confirms that it's Stuart is on the board.
No Omi available for the escape there. It's going to be right around this shield buff, which Kyrmi has been over here consistently for. All the way from the first spawn, it's felt like that focus has been a little bit towards this dual lane, and rightfully so. You want to get this Freya to late game as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Like I said, that second ring really is a good time here. Kyrmi does have Volcanic Lighting, is trying to decide if he wants to use it. Decides against it with some help from Snoopy, or maybe you look for a kill on the Scream. No, going for the ult though, just using the Dueling Dragons, can't find it. This is what I'm talking about. So many mages get that kill there, Frog, but because the Dueling Dragons don't connect, because you don't have the right angle, Scream gets to walk out, essentially for free.
Essentially for free is right. You burn a couple of ultimates. That's so far been Scream trying to get involved. Almost feels like Kyrmi, he's making a little bit of pressure. He's been there for a couple of buff invades, but it's been Scream finding himself in the enemy jungle. In fact, I think he's only used this ultimate defensively thus far. I don't think he's actually gone in with it, but using that blink, you see the start that he's gone. He's got that red claw to pop, try and get that extra damage out. So, I mean, I don't know. Where do you see this falling early on in terms of aggression? You expect this to slow down as the warrior base stats become less, less impactful, or is it still this aggression that's going to rely them on their team fights a little bit later?
I mean, the Vital Amplifier will certainly help. Scream went for some CDR, wanted that ultimate to be available just about any given moment to retreat. It's very difficult to actually use that ultimate to try and chase someone down because it takes a while to charge up. You don't gain that much movement speed. You can't cover too much ground. So, Scream really does have to go in as far as possible, get as much damage off as he can, and then use that ult to try and retreat, which is what he's been doing so far. I do think later on he'll have a decent matchup into some of these tankier targets, right? He can just walk forward and not have to care, but man, from how good Pele has been and how impactful Kyrmi's been able to get on this Soul Eater start Pele, you're not going to be wanting to trade too much damage. You're not going to be getting the better end of those trades, especially without anti-heal.
Purple Buff invade, but a slow start to this one. Only a couple kills traded back and forth, and a couple buff steals that continue to happen across the map. Nobody willing, though, to find themselves in an all-out engagement thus far. But getting around that 10-minute mark, 12 minutes, when we're going to see this beacon spawn, as well as the Pyromancer, Gold Fury, all these objectives now on the map that make Hugh some fighting as Kyrmi once again makes the rotation over. Might not even need it, though, as Hurriwind gets brought back in, but he's got the Omi, and Zap hits the ult, prevents the rotation from coming through, but puts himself in a little bit of danger. Beads get burned, and Stuart's into the ultimate. Kyrmi finds the last hit, and the 4-man rotation gets him a double kill. They're set up for gold.
Wow, I mean, where is Ven there? You're letting Snoopy rotate for absolute free. He's stealing speed buff? That's his play? That's insane. Ven says, listen, we're not rotating it. I'm just going to take Scream speed. We're going to show up late. And Zap got to be kicking himself for that one. Beautiful ult to save Hurry, yeah. Doesn't work out. You both end up dying anyway, so probably just want to save onto your own life. Maybe the Snoopy rotation was the one that wasn't called out. Hey, if it's just Kyrmi, yeah, that ult saved your support's life, but doesn't end up doing it now, and Ven does have a late rotation here. Hasn't been spotted. Here comes the teleport in the Bifrost. It looks like Awesome Jake might be in some trouble.
I don't know that they've got eyes on the rotation. Awesome Jake is the focus thus far. That's all they're going to get, though, but the positioning might be a little bit more valuable. Gold Fury started up 4 here for the Highland Ravens, and nobody in range from the Gilded Gladiators to step forward. It'll be 1 kill and a Gold Fury traded back for the red squad.
Yeah, that's a great callback. I don't think Zap needed to take that long Bifrost in, but it ends up working out. Unfortunately, Jake just sticks around way too long. And that is one of the benefits of having Surtr, right? You are able to make those calls of going up to the sky, chasing down, using the minions just essentially as wards. And you get to pick up the kill, push about everyone back. As Stu stuck around a little bit too long. Kyrmi didn't want to get involved in that fight. And then because you have to go back to base, you have to heal up, you lose the Gold Fury as well. So good looks for the Highland Ravens. They're going to keep climbing as far as gold goes. And Haddix has been just destroying waves, right? We haven't seen the Hades or the Ama get too active here, just going for some invades, but that's sort of the benefit to Hades. If you leave him alone on an island, he's going to outfarm just about anyone. He insta-clears the wave, can take your blue essentially for free because no one else is going to be able to do that much damage. And Haddix has been able to get an XP lead, so far hitting level 14 already to Kana's 12, which is a pretty big deal. Once he's able to rotate into these fights with that much damage online, this Hades can be a real threat.
Yeah, and it's the entire Highland Ravens squad holding on to that lead. I think both an XP and a little bit of a gold lead at this point as Zap Cheeky steals away the shield buff just with that sword in the air. I mean, the Highland Ravens, they definitely, the onus feels on them to try and utilize that lead. 2 levels over in the solo lane, maybe 1.5, is nothing to scoff at, especially with the amount of damage that can come through a Hades and a Hades ult this early on in the game. But with these objectives being down, it's just a waiting game for both squads at this point. What do you want from the Gilded Gladiators to try and be ready for that next engagement?
At this point, try and get level 12 on everyone, right? Get those clutch second relics online, because that's a big deal, right? Stuart just ticks over to level 12, is not feeling too safe in lane, and when your Freya's not doing well, your fight's not going to be going too well. So already step 1 done, right? Stuart gets over to level 12, he's going to be safe. A Fire Giant fight, or a Pyromancer fight rather, may be coming sooner rather than later because of the pressure Haddix has over on right. So if the Gilded Gladiators can just get some ward coverage down, stick around and look for the potential steal, not necessarily the engage, right? They don't have to fight, but just show presence and show face and just make sure that the Highland Ravens know they can't just walk up to these objectives for free. There is going to be some sort of fight back. Given the patch that we just had, I did expect to see some of these Fablest hoops come through that Hurriwind's able to build. This was a big buff to an item that I think was already decent. Wasn't getting picked up, but I'm glad that the extra shielding has gone noticed here. I think Hurriwind, pay attention to how much he's healing for and how much he's shielding his team when he does pick up those in-hands, because it can be very impactful.
Oh, coming through on a hurry. Won't be a full-on engagement, but does force a little bit of a retreat moment there in mid. And that's right as the Pyromancer spawns. Scream is looking for something. And the Highland Ravens, they've got positioning on this objective. They want to force a 3v3, and this could soon be a 4v3. It's a back there, and Hades is going to be here before Amaterasu. Kana's going to be late to this rotation if they want to fight, and this might be the engage. Scream looking for the stun on a Snoopy, already down to half HP just with that 1 tick of damage. They're going to look for the objective instead. Pyromancer getting picked up. This has to be on a knife's edge, though. Look at where Haddix is behind all of them. They're pulling the objective in on Haddix, and the engage goes both ways. Awesome Jake brings back a couple, but trapped in the River's Rebuke, he gets turned around on. Venenu grabs 1, and Khan is now under the same amount of pressure. A good stun and a finishing hit from Scream. The Highland Ravens get everything.
Not done yet, though. Zapman dives the tower. The Aegis is perfect. One more auto will do it, and Snoopy cannot return the kill. Bifrost out of here. Zapman gets the dive and gets out with his life. Scream catches Kyrmi lazy backing. What is going on? The Highland Ravens can do no wrong.
Oh my goodness, the damage there from everybody on the Ravens. The engagement goes perfect. It felt like, I thought the Gladiators, they got in on their foot. They managed to blink at the same time and avoid that blink silence from Haddix.
Yeah.
But they just get caught in the River's Rebuke.
I mean, that was the issue, right? Sure, Kyrmi avoids the engage, but the real issue was that Kana and immediately Jake go to the back line. They hit all their CC, but where's the follow-up? Especially when you look down and you're in a Pillars of Agony on top of the River's Rebuke and there's no carries with you, right? The DPS was nowhere to be seen. Unfortunate. Snoopy and Stuart really couldn't get their damage off. Kyrmi tried to go in after the fact, ends up getting out with 1 HP, but Scream's always going to find you lazy backing in the jungle, and he's able to kill that one. All the while, Primal Fury comes up, and the Highland Ravens knock Primal Fury down. Don't be fooled by the kills. This is a 7,000 going on 8 gold lead.
7,000 gold lead indeed, pre-20 minutes here for the Highland Ravens, and it's just been the last couple of minutes where you see that real spike come through. Huge fight over the Pyromancer. They take down a couple. They get both of these major objectives. Only one remaining on the map is this Fire Giant, but maybe a little bit too early in the game to start coin flipping over that one. And take a look at the level leads as well. Still a 2-level lead for Hades, still a 2-level lead now for Scream in the jungle, and this is the type of pressure that you have now. Scream is in the purple buff by himself onto Awesome Jake. Frenzy gets popped and he has to jump away, but maybe looking for the re-engage. Kyrmi on the knock-up, and into the ultimate goes Scream, chases down the support, and Jake will be the first to fall on a killing spree. And Volcanic Lightning, never good to have to use that defensively. Gilded Gladiators cannot find a way in.
Yeah, the Gilded Gladiators stuck underneath their tier 2 tower, and Haddix didn't even make that rotation. There was a Blink Hades on standby, ready to go in if need be, if that fight continues. Definitely not a good look here for the Glads. Looks like Beacon spawns in, so Highland Ravens will be able to grab that one. I was looking at, you got to look towards Zapman's build, considering when Fire Giant will be done, right? Executioner Kins, decent DPS, going into the dominance. Because you've got Hades, because you have plenty of burn from the Surtr as well, no pun intended, there should be time for a Fire Giant pull sometime in the next 5 minutes. With a lead like this, I would say you're misplaying if you're not going in for that Fire Giant pull. However, you do know that Cxnnahh is going in here aggressively. Scream doesn't have that ultimate defensively, just came up actually. Can he get up to the sky though? Looks like they're trying to chase this one down.
They tried to re-engage, but the health bars, you can see it going one way versus the other. And Kyrmi, he gets taken down just as quick as he engaged. Scream finds the second on his Snoopy, and Cxnnahh has to run for the hills. The Highland Ravens up 2. And Zapman, all the while, he is just pushing down this left-hand side. Stu can't step up.
I mean, Awesome Jake's on the way, and then he just left. You could tell Awesome Jake was heading towards the tier 2 and said, we're not killing that guy. The Highland Ravens, they don't care about Zapman's DPS. They're going to start up the Fire Giant. Cerberus on the way, though. Is this a bait? Do you just want to try and kill the dog is the question. Seems like yes.
Yeah, Jake has to be the play here. He'll jump over the wall, but Scream has the option covered. And they're all onto the Cerberus here. Scream will grab the last hit on a rampage in the mid lane. That does at least pull them off the Fire Giant, but it's right as the Pyromancer is spawning. It just continues snowballing for the Ravens.
Yeah, all the while, Zapman was stuck at tier 2 tower. A gank did come through from Kyrmi, and I saw Zap Bifrost all the way to tier 1. So without that level of safety, right, that we talk about how these crystals make sure that Heim is one of the safest ADCs in the game. If you take a teleport from tier 2 to tier 1, the enemy tier 2 to your own tier 1, you are not going to be able to use that Bifrost for at least a couple minutes. So now Zap has to play extremely safe, considering his team pretty much owns the right side of the map in that Fire Giant pit. He's going to be just fine. Cxnnahh acting as a moving ward, just checking on the FG pit. But this is going to be a 20-minute Fire Giant pull. There's not much the Gilded Gladiators can do except try and go in for a cheeky steal. And Cxnnah's the only one even in the same area code.
Yeah, at this point, I don't know if a steal attempt is worth the 20-minute Fire Giant. We'll see if the Gilded Gladiators decide to step up. But right now, looks like the answer is no. It's only Cxnnahh here. And he would have to pull off a miracle steal just to be in the same area code. He's sticking around for it, maybe looking to dash past Haddix, but the Fire Giant, great zoning, perfectly timed from Haddix, will not allow any miracle steal to come through. The Gilded Gladiators, they'll at least grab the Oni Fury, but now they have to set up for a siege defense.
Yep, Gilded Gladiators probably head back to base soon. Group and push down the last 3 tier 2 towers is the plan for the Highland Ravens, and they can get plenty of extra gold in pocket as well. That can be very scary stuff. It just depends on if you're able to defend all of these tier 2 towers, or if you even can step forward. You said it yourself, and I tend to agree. Going in for that steal, very scary, not worth the risk. If you get a pick too late on into this push, even though we're only 20 minutes in, you're looking to possibly lose your Phoenix.
could be a question of whether or not they want to defend tier 2s or if they want to defend Phoenixes at this point, although I'm not sure they have the option. They're set up at the tier 2, but they don't have 2 of their team members over here on this left-hand side.
Look at that TP. He's going so far.
Oh my goodness.
He just took it from base.
At this point, Zap, he doesn't even feel scared. He's
No.
not holding it for safety. He just wants to make sure that he's playing around with his butts. He's part of the team fight. And at this point, the Highland Ravens, they may be looking to push down the Phoenix before they even go to the other towers.
Yep, Connor has to channel that teleport, which means the Ravens have to be a little bit worried. But here comes Haddix. He just blinks forward. He doesn't care.
He grabs 2 with the Pillar of Agony, and Scream is in on the ultimate as well. Haddix has to escape, but he gets the shield, and Scream is alone in the back line. Everybody is separated in the team fight, and Snoopy is forced to run away. Scream is left on his lonesome, but somehow, miraculously, he makes enough space for 5 team members, pushes everybody out, and they get the bird without losing a member.
Yep, free Phoenix there. Now time to back up. I mean, that's just beautiful dive, right? Scream and Haddix do exactly their job. Haddix goes in first, gets Stu to, I think, 20% HP before Stu even goes to the sky. After that, just a full-on retreat, right? You sort of have to back up because you lose your ADC. I'm amazed that Scream was able to survive for that long. He did go for more of a tanky style build, as we said. It's not usually the meta. I mean, you can tell Kyrmi is building quite the opposite, just full damage. Whereas Scream, he said, I need Archdruid's Fury, I need Bumba's Hammer, I need Stone of Binding, I want to be as tanky as possible. But still, the damage, top of the charts. Seems like he's got no problem getting to the back line.
Yeah, he didn't even go Vital Amplifier, which I sort of expected from him. It's almost all hybrid after that Jotuns, and it's showing because he's got no hesitation in getting in there. And that's exactly the type of space that his team needs. So Highland Ravens operating exactly how they drew the composition up. Hurriwind has really only had to peel all game. And you know, how do the Gilded Gladiators deal with that composition? Is it just they just have to kill one of these diving members? Or is it you have to find a way into the back line?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We've talked about Huang, how he doesn't provide too much here, and with the build that Snoopy's went for, he's not doing much, right? The Soul Leader would help, or the Soul Reaver rather, but he's just not connecting those impactful ultimates. Stu is good at shredding through tanks, but as we saw, he can't even out-trade with Scream, which is a bit awkward, because he's got 3 rings, but would need that extra Typhon's damage, which he just was able to finish up here. So maybe that's enough to try and kill some of the frontliners. It's just not easy. When Haddix and Scream get to the back line, so far the team fight has been won.
Fire Giant's about to fall off here.
What
They
was
got
that?
one
Look
wave
at that
on the
damage.
push. Zap has to leave, but the Phoenix gets taken down. Scream's left alone, and he will finally be shut down, but in trade for the Soul Laner, Kana gets taken down on the other end of the fight, and the Highland Ravens, they'll take the Phoenix and a 1-for-1, and then they'll set up for fire.
And that's what I'm talking about. I mean, Snoopy hit an impactful ultimate there on the Hurriwind, and it did not break the shield. Like the shielding that Hurriwind had was not even broken, and that's about as good of a play as you can make because you're not hitting the carries. At the very least, Scream oversteps, right? He was not able to get up into the sky. He thought Haddix might have been going in a bit sooner. Unfortunate. But you have 2 Phoenixes down at 24 minutes. You're fine with that play.
A little bit of positioning here. Jake stepping up into 4. Will be pulled back just a little bit. I think the Highland Ravens hesitant to pull the trigger fully just for a level 15 support, probably rightfully so. This Primal Fury's up, but everybody's back in. Everybody's getting set up for this Fire Giant. Currently no ward coverage on the right side of the map, really for either squad. And now the question is, right, previously on the Fire Giant, nobody stepped up. Nobody from the Gilded Gladiators was even willing to ask the question. Now, you've seen how your defense goes. It's not great. It's not great. You lose 2 Phoenixes. Is it do or die before EFG? Do you have to step up to this?
This time, probably not. As long as it's not EFG, you're not in the end-all, be-all state. Of course, the Highland Ravens certainly feel like they could probably end off of this push, right? They've got the Titan, they've got Fire Giant essentially for free. But yeah, the Gilded Gladiators make the smart call. Try and get as many impactful power spikes as you really can before you have to go through. Kana, the only one nearby, Scream, and make sure to at least get some ward coverage out before going in for the confirmation, so Kana can't go in for that lucky steal attempt. But there are still 2 Titans to deal with. Scream already here. Should be relatively free to push forward and grab the tier 2 tower, but you got Kyrmi on the other side of the map, you got Stu on the other side of the map. That left side Phoenix will be protected for now. That last wave of fire minions is dealt with.
mean, this is a dream setup for the Highland Ravens. 10,000 gold up, 25 minutes. Maybe it'll get better if we get to later. They'll have an EFG in their pockets potentially. But, I mean, you can't ask for much more than this Titan pushing down the right-hand side as these mid-bird is going to be under pressure as well. They have to find the engage, though.
Is that going to teleport in again?
Oh my goodness.
Here he comes.
He's coming all the way down the line. They've got the Titan pushing as well.
The teleport all the way in shows, hey, I do not need this teleport. I've got my ultimate for a dash. And here comes the Titan who can essentially solo that Phoenix if given the opportunity.
They let it do so. The ultimate's out. It only grabs Zapman, and Haddix is in as well for the engage. Look for Scream in the air. The Titan falls low, but the re-engage has to come through for the Highland Ravens. The Titan still is not down to the Phoenix, rather, and Zapman grabs Jake. He grabs Stuart as well. Who needs an escape when all you need is the W key? Venenu grabs the third, and Cxnnahh is trapped between the red team and his base, has to run the other way. But with fire minions and the only member left standing, I don't know that he has enough in the tank. The Highland Ravens, they take game number 1.
And that was clinical, right? Their objective play was top tier. You just leave Haddix alone to split push, and he gets so far ahead that no one can deal with the Hades. The Surtr jungle, I was shocked at how much value he was able to find. With that tanky style of build, I truthfully thought these hybrid junglers were a little bit out of favor at the moment, right? How much have we seen just Pele, Susano, all these junglers that just build full damage have been so impactful? But Scream just goes to show, hey, it's not just Cyno that can build these tanky warriors and support for the team, as well as, in this case, being top of the damage charts for a while that game.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the whole game. Like,
Yep.
he didn't waste any time getting in on those buff invades.
Yep.
He was there early from the get-go at 5 minutes, 10 minutes, all the markers. He's at the top of the damage charts.
Yep.
But it also feels so bad to ban a Surtr away. Like,
Oh, no,
I don't know how
you can't do that.
Right, you have to go somewhere else with the comp.
I would say you have to either try and find pressure onto the Surtr or make sure your carries are not so far behind that they can't out DPS a Surtr, which is the big issue. Not sure if the Huang was the biggest issue there. I definitely don't want to see the run back or maybe a different build change. Either way,
Sure.
I think there was a lot of issues there from the Glads. You can't just harp on one single thing.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely look to game number 2 to see if they can put things together a little bit better. They've got to bounce back, got to look to the draft. But we will see how they bounce back right after the break.
That's kind of the big question I have. Like, how important to y'all is it to win this event?
Probably the most important thing on all our minds ever maybe, you know.
Ferryman, 5 strong, fire giant enabled, and standing outside of the Titan room of an undefeated team looking to do what no one has been able to do this year. They're gonna row it down and end the Warriors 3-0 to be the Masters victors. That's right. Right now, you can go to youtube.com/SmitePro and check out, again, 15.5 minutes of not interactive.
I mean,
interviews.
You could scrub the videos.
Yeah, you can scrub
interactive.
the videos. There's the interaction that you have with normal YouTube. To get the interviews where we talk to Jake, we talk to Genetics, we talk to a lot of the Warriors to figure out what had gone on, specifically, as you had mentioned, Mifflin, around maybe one of the messiest team swaps.
It is the worst. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. That was the most mishandled roster swap in all of Smite history. It was real poor.
To the point where, you know, especially like we're talking win streaks for the Warriors. Depending on how that's handled in a different way, they might still be on that win streak as we speak. But if you want to find out more and see kind of why we feel that way about it and what the discussion is around that, make sure you go to youtube.com/SmitePro and check it out. There's a ton of content on there as well. So if you are not only interested just in that, you can also get some ranked tier lists as well as team check-ins, actually with the Gladiators, to hear some more thoughts of Jake's on the matter in that 40 minutes. I'm also going to give myself a shout-out because that was a good end call by me. And I felt real good about it. And so you can experience exclusively that moment from myself in that set. It's a really fun video, though. Absolutely recommend watching it. Just like I recommend watching this set and seeing I guess some of the aftermath of what happened with that roster swap and those changes, which is Jake ending up on the Gladiators, and I think you had said in this one where they're up 4-0, 4-1.
4-1.
And then did not matter because the Ravens just played everything else better.
Yeah, the Ravens macro was by and large just so much better than what we had seen from the Gilded Gladiators there. It is very rare that you see a game so dominantly controlled in the PvP throughout the early game reflect absolutely nothing. In fact, an inverse reflection in gold and experience. Experience gap was never too crazy at that point, but 2,000 gold, 4-1, I think really does indicate exactly what the Highland Ravens were going for throughout the early, which was safe farm, control the macro, get all the neutrals, let's grab a few objectives, and then by the time that team fight phase rolled through, we didn't get too many looks at the actual team fight because the Ravens were just independently winning out so solidly in situations like this. That is a very clear 2v3, with the Ravens being the 2, and the Ravens absolutely dominate on it. I had some question marks about the Surtr coming into this game. I thought even with some of the buffs recently, with how items have lined up for him, I thought maybe still not quite jungle material. I'm not certain if I'm there yet, but it looked real good for him, right? Was it that the Ravens just so severely outclassed the Gladiators in game 1, or was it legitimately that the Surtr looks good? Yeah. Probably a little column A, a little column B. We'll have to evaluate it as the season goes on. But regardless, clearly the Highland Ravens come with a strategy, and it's win out in PvP once you group up and win out in macro from minute 0. And it's something you had talked to me about. Zapman, I think, maybe embodies how little pressure the Ravens were feeling perfectly in his usage of the Bifrost.
Yeah.
He could have bought teleport as a relic. Instead said, I've got it built into my kit. I won't be needing this teleport for another 100 seconds. And he did it a lot that game.
And those like that, it's not a cooldown to mess around with. It takes forever.
It is very long.
Come back the further you use it. And he was using it some long distances that game. And kind of to reiterate it, that just shows how little he felt the pressure and the necessity to have even a short range disengage if he could use it instead for a long range engage. And that really opened up the door for the Ravens here. So we'll see how well they can continue and what the Gladiators have in response. Jump into game 2 here. Gladiators will once again remain first pick. And I wonder what kind of shifts and changes they make. So first and foremost, Athena becomes their first ban, but she was still banned last time around, so still some area. I know Ares was a big one. Chernobog has been in that conversation, but Hades, Mifflin, makes it up into the ban column for the Gladiators, trying to stifle that. And I know we had talked about it. You had actually mentioned it last time around, and now that Olorun's banned, it feels like a good time to dip into it again. But Demonic Grip got buffed,
which is insane. It's already a core item, and it got a little bit more power on it. Of course, Demonic Grip is one of the worst feeling rings to pick up because the passive, similar to Executioner, it's like you don't really get to feel a massive change. It's kind of behind the scenes. Oh, I got a little bit more penetration as opposed to like Telkines or Kin Size, where you're getting like the yellow number pop up. But do not be fooled. Demonic Grip is a very, very good item right now.
And so with Olorun gone, we actually saw, well, first off, we've seen a lot of Freya as of late. We've even seen some Soul start to kind of squeak back in there. Pretty much everybody but Kronos. Anytime the Magical Hunters come back, he always gets the short end of the stick.
Which is interesting to me because I feel like Kronos maybe right now does have perhaps at least a bit of a home in the meta, just because there is so much magical power available, and how the totems, the jungle masks can interact. If you get lucky, you get to stack up some of that CDR early on with the blue mask. You'll have rewind a little bit more often, but we could wax poetic, or I could, about Kronos for just about ever. It is still worth noting that nobody's playing him.
Yeah, no, as much as you might like him, which does translate to, I also love playing Kronos. But I think that's I loved him when he came out, and I've loved him ever since. Not been picked up. And of course, closing out those bans and things that won't get picked up here. Pele and the Ares also taken away. Gladiators go to the Ama once again for their first pick. Horus and Yemoja locked in for the Highland Ravens. So they see a front line, honestly, a devastating front line, I would say. I can think of top plays from both Haddix and Hurry on both of these picks. Hurry's 4-man Yemoja ult that admittedly was a rarity, but still one that lives in my mind. And so the Ravens step up to that immediately. A lot of healing as well that they're going to be able to bring to the table.
Yeah, I like this composition from the Gilded Gladiators. It's starting to line up as well. You've got Stu on one of his most comfortable picks, Raijin a hyper-aggressive mid laner, so this does put a little bit more pressure on the Gladiators to play through mid. I feel like anytime you've got Raijin there, just having Thunder Crash available as a gap close or the Raiju for massive damage. Come level 3, Raijin is one of the most threatening mages in Smite, and it's not as if he really falls off come late game. You've got an Amaterasu in solo who should be able to hold her own relatively well. We saw in the last set that Horus Amaterasu matchup did slightly favor the Horus just because of his poke potential, how well he leverages the Golden Blade, how strong his poke could potentially be. But for the most part, I think you could trust this Amaterasu to kind of just hang out on her own, and that should facilitate the Gladiators to play either towards duo or the center of the map. Back to the Surtr, though, for the Highland Ravens. Look, and I'll reiterate what I said at the top. I'm not wholly sold on Surtr himself. I think that there was a massive team gap in Game 1. Just about any jungler is probably going to look good in a situation like that, but I did see enough from Surtr to say that his damage output has increased significantly. He now poses a much greater threat, and of course having global presence from your ultimate and a essentially guaranteed stun. It's pretty difficult to whiff that Surtr stun. Does make him pretty decent on the gank.
And something I was looking up, that the Ferryman will be playing a little bit later this week. And so I think Surtr has now entered the I will not be surprised if Cyno locks it in again territory.
Yep. Cyno's mad about it, probably. He's like, I should be the one debuting at Phase 2.
The Ravens will be playing the Dragons around this time, well, I guess about one game ago, tomorrow. And so that's another time that I'm going to be keeping my eyes open to see if it comes back. Of course, we have to get through this set before that happens. Only got the one game, the one win. So we'll see if the Ravens can keep that up, or if the Gladiators, I mean, look, Ama, Ram, and Raijin, that's a really, really solid top 3. Bans come through. But before I get to those, you have something to say.
Yeah, I think it is really interesting, and it's something the Ravens had talked about in the pregame interview. Hurriwind calls out Kyrmi as the player that the Ravens are most concerned about. And I tend to agree. When I think of the Gilded Gladiators and their win conditions, it is that volatility of their jungler and his ability to, on occasion, absolutely dominate a game, and on occasion, look pretty poor. It's that volatility. But when I think of carry potential, it's just Kyrmi for the Gilded Gladiators. It's him. If he's having a great game, that's the Gilded Gladiators at their best, which is what makes it so interesting to me that the Gilded Gladiators have 2 times in a row now essentially foregone Kyrmi's pick in top 3 and then had some of his best selections banned out. Kyrmi is very strong on that rat. We know he loves that global presence. We know he's very capable of initiating fights on a pick like that or playing that solo agent style. So I would think you'd really want him to get one of his comfort selections. And when you compare it to what the Gilded Gladiators are first picking, Amaterasu is a great pick. I'm never going to complain about an Ama first slot. But I will say when I think of Cxnnahh, especially since his tenure in the SPL, tenure is a difficult word to use considering how short a duration of time he's actually been here, but he strikes me as much more so a role player out of the soul lane. He wants to hang out there, farm up, he'll try his best to control totem, but he's not really getting hyper aggressive. I don't associate early rotations towards mid with Cxnnahh. I don't really feel like you're playing through Cxnnahh too often either. He almost reminds me of Ducky in that regard. So why put such a high priority selection? Why give yourself his pick so early when you know your win condition could likely get one of his favorites there instead?
Yeah, being able to put him into an awkward spot. They do ban out Rat, though, right? Try to limit some of those. Ganesh gets banned away once again from the Ravens. Other side, Freya, Morgan Le Fay, Anhur locked in for Zapman. And if he's going to play half as aggressively as he was on the Heimdallr, Anhur's going to love it. Charon, though, in response, something that the Gladiators have gone to quite a few times, including Kickoff, and the Camazotz gets locked in. Camazotz has been pretty popular, and more so, you look at this, outside of the Charon, I mean, you've got some pretty much top in-roll gods on the Gladiators, top to bottom. Charon's the only one that has some question marks. Not a lot of teams are playing him. When they do, this is the spot that he gets locked in on. And Mifflin, part of me wants to ask about that, part of me wants to ask about the Raw, because if this was like the Hounds playing and Benny Q locks it in, I'm not batting an eye at it. But Vin locking it in, it's been a while since pretty much anybody else has been playing it.
Yeah, the Ravens have shown now 2 very heavy sustain-based compositions. Game 1, a lot of sustain. Game 2, the same, but a little bit more as well. Horus and Yemoja, of course, but now with Ra alongside it. Yeah, Surtr's got a lot of self-sustain too. Seems to me that they think healing is very strong right now, and I tend to agree with some of the new healing itemization options. Things like Sect Meds or Caduceus, very good right now, so I don't hate the composition, and I do think it does play well into the Surtr ganks that I was talking about a little bit earlier. It is very telegraphed when Surtr wants to line up his stun, which is two-pronged. It's easier now to immune the stun or try to avoid it, but it's also easier now for Ven to say, oh, he's picked up a minion, I think I'm going to start lining up Searing Pain.
Yep.
And the stun is just long enough, it's just easy enough to confirm that I imagine we see that combo very consistently in mid.
And that can be the danger. The consistency of it, I think, is the true danger, right? Well, you talk about the tried and true combos. Go to, maybe it was earlier this year, last year, Twig on Najah, and Tings would just lock in Ra. And it was just guaranteed. You know when the ult's coming. You know what the combo's going to be. It wasn't too surprising. And lo and behold, this is something similar, maybe more common, but maybe a little harder to line up than something as blatant as a Najah. It's still going to be a lot of fun. Do you think, though, I guess I was going to say maybe damage diversification, but they kind of got it, right? Ra's going to bring a lot onto the table, and then you've got an Anhur and a Surtr with how hard Scream was hitting last time. I don't think there's any real reason to doubt it. So I guess the better question is, how can the Gladiators try to stifle the Ravens this time around, right? They got those kills last, but weren't able to keep up in gold.
Yeah, I think the Gladiators are going to run into the issue of how do we deal with frontline, because there is a massive wall of frontline between them and the priority targets. Are we going to be able to work through Surtr? How are we going to get past Horus? Barring that, do we have our Phantom Shelf or River's Rebuke? Are we ready to keep chasing forward? Because the entire goal of the Gilded Gladiators should be to rally around this Charon. Even Raijin, to a certain extent, is going to join up in that front line with the Raiju Thunder Crash combo. How are you going to make contact with the Ra? When are you going to make contact with the Anhur? Because those two are relatively mobile. Anhur with a leap, Ra with his movement speed passive, as well as slow immunity. I think that is the primary concern for the Gilded Gladiators going forward. They've got a strong dive composition, sure, and they've got the global presence from Ram to make contact with those targets from range. But if you fall behind early and you don't have the damage to threaten the front line of the Highland Ravens, you're probably going to get barreled over by the front line.
Well, the Ravens have thrown down the gauntlet. The challenge is issued. Will the Gladiators answer? Will the Ravens go up 2-0? We'll find out here in Game 2.
Thank you so much, Gormizer and Mifflin. Game number 2, Gladiators versus Ravens. Still got Frog, still got Trelly, still got Doug taking us through the map. And an interesting comp once again. I think I led in to game number 1 with this is an interesting composition. And I don't even feel bad about doing it again, because I cannot remember the last time that we've seen 1, Venenu on a Ra, but 2, I think they're going to have like 4 healing characters, man, and that is tough to play into.
Yeah, just about everyone's going to have some form of sustain on this squad here for the Highland Ravens. Anti-heal, definitely something the Gilded Gladiators are going to want to try and prioritize at some point, maybe even that cursed Ankh at level 12, something that Awesome Jake or even Kana could try and pick up. But they still do have plenty of damage getting Raijin. I think this is a pick that Snoopy has looked very strong on as far as how the past couple of matchups we've seen. I've argued he's looking the best on the Raijin. There was just that one play where he overstepped a little bit too far around Phoenix line, but still that game he was popping off. So don't hate to see the Raijin. I talked about not wanting to see something like the Huang again, and I think Raijin does bring a little bit more damage, a little bit more sustain, a little bit more CC rather. And it's pretty easy to try and go for a play like that. So that's not going to be a bad look. However, when you're standing still in Taiko drums, Searing Pain is relatively easy to hit. Maybe that's the reason Ven went to this Ra. I mean, you can really ruin a Raijin's day just trying to snipe him every time he goes into that ultimate.
Yeah, and they talked about the setup on the desk. This stun coming through from Scream. It's not an Athena taunt, and it's not a Windfire Wheels, but it is some form of setup, not to mention the setup coming from Haddix.
Oh, yeah.
Once we inevitably get to these team fights. So there is definitely some potential for Ven to just get these Searing Pains ripping through any given team fight. And especially so with the amount of area control that they have. Hurriwind back towards this Yemoja on this pick, and I think that the triple frontline, or pseudo-triple frontline that they had in Game 1 served them really well.
Yeah, they have a lot of that hard CC, which Ven is going to need, right? You can hit the free snipes, that's all well and good, but if you want to take the chance out of it, the predictions, you juke left, I juke right, that sort of thing, then just get some good CC, which Horus will definitely provide, as you said. And of course, as long as Scream's by, not going to be a big issue. But once again, Scream has opted not to go for the cooldown buff and to invade Kyrmi on this protection buff. Was a little late last time. This time around does not let it slide, and now Scream, because of that aggressive positioning, is able to pick up this protection buff unless Awesome Jake's able to steal away. Either way, Kyrmi's not getting that XP, and that's a big difference maker. I mean, it's so often that we see, hey, they cleared faster than us, I'm just going to go right, they go left, that sort of thing. But Scream is not letting that slide anytime this set.
He forces the 1v1 and has a little bit of an advantage here early. We talked not a ton about it, and so I want to hit it again if we get a chance to. Zap taking quite a bit of poke there, Stu. Expected him to maybe roll in if he wanted more of it. We'll force the meditation out from Hurriwind. But, I mean, talking about this dual lane switch, we see Hurriwind back on the Yemoja. Everything else changes. You get classic Hunter matchup. Zap, once again, gets the ability to be a little bit aggressive, which if game one is any indicator, he wants to be aggressive. But my biggest focus is maybe Jake. I don't know that he looked super comfortable on the Cerberus in game number 1. And we've seen him on the Charon before, an aggressive pick, one that he likes to go back to. I expect him to be making waves on this pick.
A lot of damage coming through here. Ven does have his reset, but it looks like Snoopy's got more damage here. Can he stick around and use the drums? No, because here comes Hurriwind. Ven should be able to pick up, but Hurriwind steals it away. First blood. Snoopy just did not have the DPS to try and trade with Ra. So much healing, so much damage, and that Horn Shard coming in real clutch.
Yeah, I didn't think he would take that, to be honest.
No, I thought he would bail much earlier.
I thought he would bail way earlier. He wants to take the fight instead. Hurriwind comes over, steals the last hit. He earned it, too. Like, that was Hurriwind.
As far as I'm concerned, as long as my support's rotating, they can have the last hits. I don't even want the kills. Just don't leave me alone. Ven gets the extra assist. He hits level 6 first. He's got access to Searing Pain. He'll be fine. He's doing just fine.
He's doing just fine. We'll find a little bit of a lead off of that assist early on. And that's going to be a focus, I think. Snoopy, we talked about him on the Huang, now on this Raijin. There's a lot of pressure for him to be aggressive on this notably aggressive pick. So I certainly don't dislike him being up there at the green buff, trying to force something, but has to be a little bit more careful knowing that damage. Level 5 here, hit for the Glads first on this left-hand side, but it's ticked over for the Ravens, and they've got the man advantage. Scream makes the perfectly timed rotation, and it's 2-0 up for the Ravens.
Wow, that was interesting. Highlighted by Doug, Scream did not put a point into his ultimate at level 5. Almost didn't make it in time, right? Hurriwind got pretty weak there, but once he was able to pick up that kill, immediately just puts the point in at level 6. So wanted to prioritize farming a little bit more, recognize, hey, no one's getting aggressive onto me. I don't need my ult, right? I'm not ulting out. And hey, once we get that extra damage online, maybe I needed to rotate in, look for some fights, so ends up leveling the ultimate anyways. But still, Scream, plenty of damage as we saw last game. Looks like that same style of play will continue, but has been hovering the right side of the map. Seems to want to try and play through Haddix, try and invade some of these blue buffs, gank Kana if possible. This Ama is gone. I was going to say, is looking weak, looking gone. Didn't have the time to react. One blink stun from Scream. Sorry, Ama. See you later.
This is a matchup we saw a little bit earlier as well. The Horus, one that we have more typically seen in the support role, making its way back into the solo role. Is this a counter? I won't even get a chance. Hurriwind under some pressure here, and it looks like Snoopy back towards this green buff. Wants to take the fight this time around. Searing Pain guarantees a little bit of farm, but still am a fan of Snoopy looking to be aggressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the Horus is just a pick that Haddix has liked to go to for quite some time. If you get Golden Blade start, you insta-clear the wave, but with the Rune Forge buffs that have come through, Haddix actually decides to just outright buy that item and say, hey, we've got plenty of CC, we're going to be proccing this item pretty consistently, maybe even goes into the glyph later on, because there was pretty much every version of this item was buffed, and it's just going to help you out. Look at the damage that you're seeing as long as you're in that circle. Haddix is going to have a good time, and Kana just came back from base, man. He's going to have a blue buff.
He's got the gooseberries as well. Already hitting for the AoE damage there. Haddix liking this pick. And this is what I was saying, like, Ama's getting picked a lot more now. This might be a specific counter pick into these auto-attack focus solo laners.
You don't want to get close to Horus, as we just saw, right? If you're having to get within auto-attack range, he's going to CC you for half an hour, make sure the wave comes through, and clear the wave in the process. And you know what? I noticed he bought tier 1 breastplate, then ended up selling it. We have to hold that thought because Kyrmi is on the way. It looks like Hurriwind caught wind of this, but he might be in trouble.
Under some pressure, traps him in the River's Rebuke, but he's got to walk back towards Stuart, and that's not the way you want to go. It's got to be the snipes off the mark on one. I don't even think the third gets there. The meditation heals, and they drop the kill onto Hurra when he puts on the juke shoes and is able to get out of there with the Riptides.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Awesome Jake is playing this pretty perfectly. That's the second time that Rise of Gank has come through. He's hit the ultimate, feared Hurriwind back through. Hurry stalls, doesn't really have too much Omi, but Kyrmi jumps away and wasn't able to get the ult off. Jump in from Zapman does not have the auto attacks, and now Stuart has a chance to push him back. Either way, surprising nonetheless.
Whoa. Yeah, beads burned off of Snoopy. In Venenu doesn't even need the setup. You can already see early on here how much damage that Searing Pain is doing. I think that was 2 total abilities. And Scream might not be done. This is some interesting positioning here. Kyrmi was the one under pressure, but now Scream may get chased down. I don't know if he has the mana for an ultimate. Scream with the overcommittal under the tier 1 tower hands the Glads their first kill.
I mean, he clearly wanted to blink onto Snoopy, but once that play died, I'm amazed that he walked forward and committed to the stun. Like, who are you stunning under tower with no mana there, Scream? A little bit overexcited. Makes a questionable play and gives the kill over to Kyrmi. Not going to be the end of the world, though. Still does have 2 kills under his belt, so not going to be a shutdown or anything like that. But you highlighted the beads down. That's a big issue because Snoopy doesn't really have the luxury of being able to beads and dash away. There's a lot that Scream can do that's going to be able to cancel that dash. With Ven around and that snipe almost off cooldown already, I'd be looking towards this Raijin. I'd be spending a lot of time in mid, especially when you've got a solid 2 minutes of being able to hit that stun.
Yeah, Snoopy was one that struggled in game number 1, I feel like, to deal relevant damage, especially with the lead that the Ravens got off to. And it's looking like a similar start. Maybe not as volatile, but the Ravens definitely up a little bit to start this game. And it's felt that way in terms of the pressure as well. Scream goes back to this pick. Make sure to grab it in the top 3 so that it doesn't get banned away. On the other side, though, Snoopy and Kyrmi, they're finding the pressure onto Ven. Beads get forced onto the Ra as well, but he's off the mark. He misses 2, 3 Taiko drums, and the turnaround is beautiful. Ven grabs the kill onto Snoopy, and Kyrmi, he's chased down on the right-hand side. Blink in, and Haddix grabs it off the mark with 3 out of 4 Taiko drums, and he gets punished for it.
Oh, that one was hard to watch, Frog. I mean, the rotation in from Haddix is clutch. Of course, that shielding and that CC sets you up for the kill, but, I mean, Ven he's got the juke shoes there. I understand Ra's fast, but we gotta be hitting those holds there. Unfortunate for Snoopy. This set has not been going his way. And Ven, I mean, on top of the world here. He does have to use his relics just to survive there. The beads go down, but as far as I'm concerned, the dive was a bit difficult as is, right? Kyrmi wasn't providing too much damage there either. I think Snoopy had to make that play because the Camazotz just didn't have enough damage online.
Yeah, and the response from Haddix was beautiful as well. In with the ultimate perfect timing, he grabs a kill. The Ravens definitely on the same page here and go out to a 2K, maybe close to 3K gold lead if they can push it a little farther. And we're nearing the point in the game where they chose to force the Gold Fury fight in game number 1. And that's really the fight that felt like it just started the snowball rolling for the Highland Ravens. A little bit of a different comp this time around. I think the Glads have more in the tank to try and fight back. That's maybe where the hesitation comes from in starting something as aggressive as that. But Gold Fury on the map, Pyromancer looking to spawn soon, Beacon looking to spawn soon. We're coming up on this point in time where something feels like they got to start pushing this lead if they want to continue rolling down the hill.
And I love what we're seeing here because this looks to me like peak Highland Ravens, right? Where at the start of this split, they didn't quite understand the meta they wanted to play. They didn't understand their version of SMITE. Now, you got these unique picks from mid, which is really what Ven made his namesake on. Tries to go in for the stuns here, Bakana. a little bit privy to that information. Still, attempting to dive, though, means that the Gilded Gladiators could get aggressive on the left side of the map, and it looks like they'll do just that.
Hurriwind under pressure, Kyrmi on to the support, and this time Snoopy hits all 4, and the support falls for the Highland Ravens. The pressure's still on, and beads get burned away from the ADC. A 2 versus 4 positioning here on the left-hand side, and the Gold Fury becomes a question mark. It's only Scream here in range of the objective. Zapman gonna be asked to get close as well, but Kyrmi doing a little bit of zoning around that corner. Gets caught out down to half HP. Zap looking to take the 1v1. Has to force the jump early on, and Scream gets turned around on. They get separated throughout the fight. The Gilded Gladiators play the map perfectly, grab 3 and a Gold Fury.
I'm amazed at how long Ven spent on the right side of the map. I was about to praise him. I mean, but after you get the tier 1 tower, he's at back camps, he's farming, he stuck around for like the second gank on Akana. I mean, I love the first play, right? You recognize that Kana has 0 magical defense, and if Haddix finds a stun, your 100 is zeroing. For sure. That's a great play. Doesn't work out. Kana gets the dazzling offensive off, lives to the gank. You look over towards left, Hurriwind's dying. Ven's like, alright, you know what? I can't make it over to gold in time. Let's push tower. They go in for the tier 1. Ven's still like, oh, Gold Fury's not being done. Maybe I should walk over there. Nah, I'm going to go for the back camps. All of this, Scream doesn't get up to the sky, doesn't able to stall. I'm just thinking about how many tools the Highland Ravens had to slow down that team fight and let Raw show up to try and defend that Fury. Doesn't end up working out, of course, and in this case, Raijin goes uncontested, gets some free ultimates off, and the Gilded Gladiators find a way back into this game. But it seemed like a play that didn't need to happen. I think Ven spent way too much time over on the right side of the map. Get the tower, and get out. You're not killing Kana after that ult misses.
Gold Fury and 2, and the Gilded Gladiators continue to stem the bleeding. They keep the gold lead exactly where it was. They keep the experience lead close as well. You'll notice that farm difference coming through from Venenu. He chooses to grab some of the back camps, grab a couple of waves on right. All of a sudden grabs about a 1.5 level lead there in the mid lane. Kana under some pressure here. Scream making his way over to the right-hand side. And one of the damage to finish that one off. But, I mean, it's just given the Gilded Gladiators this sense of momentum. Look how comfortable they're feeling. They're just pushed up in the enemy jungle. Zapman has to play back at his tier 2 tower.
Yeah, because everyone's spending so much time in his purple buff, right? The left side of the map, unfortunately, is not somewhere the Highland Ravens have been. And this is what I wanted to talk about beforehand. It really does seem like the Ravens are building their own version of composition here, focused on healing. Here comes Kyrmi to the backline. How much damage is he able to do? So far, not much.
My goodness, Snoopy has to stay alive here. Still has the dash if he wants to use it. Awesome Jake looking for the fear and finds it onto Venenu. The re-engage here from the Gilded Gladiators. They've trapped out Ven and the River's Rebuke. They have to fight into it if they want to find the kill. The healing is so potent though, and they can't find it, just barely. Kyrmi trades out his life, but it's a 1 for 2, and the Highland Ravens now there on the chase down the mid lane. Haddix with the rotation in, and the low health bars from the Glads force them back down the mid lane. This healing coming through from the Ravens is staggering.
So much HP 5, they should be able to go in for this Pyromancer for free. It's curious if the Gilded Gladiators would step forward, but awesome Jake does not have the range, does not have the damage. He's going to give that Runic Bomb over to Zapman for now. Unfortunate for Ven, man. Just a little bit late to the bus. Horus goes to the sky, says, hey guys, we're getting out of here, but the Ra was not able to make it in, and because of that, the whole team comes back. They try to save Ven, but the snipes from Stu on top of Kyrmi diving the backline. I mean, I truthfully thought there was no anti-heal. That was through the Brawler's beatstick. Ven still has so much healing.
And the Divine.
Yeah, thanks to Haddix, thanks to Hurriwind, and of course, thanks to Ven himself. Picking up that last gasp, wanted some extra damage after those heals come through. Zapman holding this jump for quite some time. Wanted to make sure he could cover as much ground as possible. Has to Aegis, but he'll be living for now.
Be living for now on the left-hand side. Hurriwind there to help him heal up a little bit, but with this major objective off the board, Pyromancer down, it's now all eyes towards the Gold Fury, just up in 10 seconds. And Highland Ravens look like they have the positioning for it. Notably Haddix over here on this left-hand side, Kana over on the right-hand side. So this could be the man advantage if the Highland Ravens want to force it. They lost out on the last Gold Fury. They want to make sure that they're here for this one.
They do. Gilded Gladiators are close by on a lot of Ravens wards, by the way. The Highland Ravens have the left side of the map just lit up. They know where everyone is at in their own jungle, which is not a good place to be, especially when Venenu is nearby with snipes. Awesome Jake gets CC'd, but it looks like Snoopy might be in some trouble.
Oh my goodness, no beads available.
Gone.
He just gets swallowed whole in the back line, and Venenu finds the last hit. The chase is on and forces the Gladiators back to their tier 2 tower. Question is if they want to look to contest. It's only Awesome Jake who sticks around. Kyrmi heads over to the mid lane. They'll give away the Primal Fury. And that pick, that's the danger. If you're canceling out Snoopy, he can't move. He doesn't get a chance to play the game.
I mean, it's a positioning diff, but more than anything, Frog, it's a ward diff. I mean, Snoopy is just free casting through a wall thinking he's okay. He had both relics available. Beads and Aegis were up.
Oh my.
He didn't realize there was someone behind him. Because guess what? He's on 2 different wards at the same time. In this case, Stu warded, so he knew that he was being ganked. But yeah, Snoopy had no idea. And because of that, Ven's able to one-shot him through the wall thanks to the setup there from Haddix. You gotta make sure you've got those sentry wards down, which unfortunately the Gilded Gladiators don't. I'm curious, who do we blame though? Who's the lowest warded on the Gilded Gladiators? If I had to guess, I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, it's Kyrmi. What a bum. Only 3. Ridiculous.
Ridiculous, dude. That lack of vision really hurting him and hurting Snoopy there with the searing pain. No setup needed. Venenu makes the space. They've got the pressure on to the beacon here. Kyrmi coming from behind. But with no wards with the jungler, they're lacking vision there and won't be able to step onto the beacon because of it. Awesome Jake poked down as well. It's just pressure now from the Highland Ravens, and it almost feels like a switch has flipped. I don't know what it is. It can't just be word coverage, but it felt like they were so confident up in the left jungle looking for the picks. They were all together. I mean, Kyrmi and Snoopy were a 2-man army, and all of a sudden it feels like they've lost all the wind out of their sails.
Because this guy showed up, the level 18 Ra. Remember when that was happening, when they felt confident, when they were at tower line for Zapman? Where was Ven? Pushing right tower, right? He was with Haddix. So once you actually get the full rotation, that's when it's looking worse. Remember, this happened last time. 3-man rotation onto Scream, but it looks like Haddix and Scream are onto this one. You're not making it into the Horus ult, but you force 2 ults defensively. The Highland Ravens play this one smart. Last game, they simply just won that 2v3 because Haddix was Hades and did so much damage. But this time, they decided to retreat. Probably the smart call. Stuart's not over in left lane, though. Gilded Gladiators. Are they stepping up just for the Pyromancer? That seems to be the play.
2-for-1 ult trades. They've got the slight advantage here if they want to try and turn things around, and Hurriwind becomes the focus. Ultimate used from Venenu as well, and all of a sudden it's an advantage on the Gilded Gladiators. Haddix goes into the back line on his lonesome and gets turned around on, has to dash away, but the ultimate is late there from Snoopy. It's only grabbing Hurriwind, and he just barely gets taken down by Awesome Jake. Gladiators find a pick, and they're up man advantage here, but Scream has now joined the fray. Blink in, and the Ravens steal away the Pyromancer and are looking for the fight after the fact. Zap wasn't left, but you gave him enough time. You let him join the team fight, and he takes down Jake, and the space continues to come through. Scream is chasing down Kyrmi, and the Highland Ravens get everything they were looking for, and they might get even more. Snoopy trapped between a pillar and a lane, and the Ravens get 4.
Ven's got snipe. He wants to use it. Can you find anything onto Stu? Does not seem like it. And here comes the ult from Cxnnahh. He's just playing defense here. There's no way he can find a kill.
They are still looking for the damage. Oh my goodness, the impale from Zap, and they take another one with them. The Gladiators were looking to set up for the objective. They even had the man advantage, but it all turns on ahead, and the Ravens looking to take the FG.
20-minute fire giant. The only thing that could steal is Awesome Jake's ultimate. It's not off cooldown yet. He could send in a very slow-moving wave here. I'm kind of curious if he even does send it over, but if he did, he'd be on a ward, because guess what? Even in mid lane, the Highland Ravens have ward coverage. They know where you are, even when you're sleeping. You cannot do anything with the Highland Ravens around. There's the slowest wave in the world. It clips 3, but is not able to steal away that objective. The Highland Ravens get to go on back to base, probably set up for the Oni Fury unless the Gilded Gladiators get offensive right away. It just touched down. They need to pull it right now if they're going for it.
Oh my goodness, my mind is still on that fight. How does that go so wrong for the Gilded Gladiators? They get a pick, they burn all the ultimates off. It felt like they had a man advantage, and then Screammmmm just blinks in and does everything.
I think that Kyrmi tanked up Pyro way too long. He was essentially half health from the get-go. And then you leave Zapman a split push. He gets to show up late and the sustain. That's the big part, right? If you get the pick into a composition like this, you get the pick and get out. You don't stick around and let Yemoja, Ra, Surtr, and just all this healing come through all at the same time. Throw Haddix in there as well. The Horus will be sustaining for the team. You don't win a delayed fight, not into this composition. You win the first time, you pop the Onk, and you get out. You never stick around.
This feels like deja vu from game number 1. A little bit of a split push coming through from the Glads this time, though. Ravens are quick to respond. They send 2 over. It's a 3 versus 3 on the left-hand side, but the Ravens, they're the ones with the Fire Giant. They might be the ones forcing the fight here as well. Zapman has to be on the retreat. The root comes through, and they've got the damage to follow it up. And they're looking for the ADC. Snoopy finds it, and Screammmmm, he's got no escape left. They have to find it, but he finds a trade. Stuart able to take down the jungler. There it's a 2-for-1 onto 2 Fire Giant players. The Glads even defend their tier 2.
This is so puzzling to me, Frog, because the Ravens do so much good, and then they troll like that again, where they send 2 over to right, and then say, hey, we've got Screammmmm, we've got Ven, and we've got Zap. We'll just push tier 2 3v3 when Kana's got teleport. It's just never the good call. Kana goes forward. Looks like unless some CC connects, we'll be fine. Still, the sustain comes through, and the Gilded Gladiators, they're poised to fight this.
Stuart rolls in and just deals out the damage. Haddix has to dash away, and Hurriwind is beautiful on the peel. Traps 3. And the River's Rebuke. The Highland Ravens maybe bite off a little bit more than they can chew on that first Fire Giant. They do get that mid-tier 2. They knock some health down on the left side. But I can't help but feel like they could have gotten so much more.
100%. I mean, there's no reason to send 2 people back to defend right lane. It just doesn't make sense because, you know, Kana's got the ability to teleport. He can show up in an instant. If you're going over there to split push, if Kana gets away, he's going to join the fight over and left. That's a given. And the other thing is the illusion of Screammm's tankiness. He's tanky on paper. But we saw what happens when 3 members of the Gilded Gladiators get close to this Surtr. He's not able to do much. Shouts out to Ven for hitting the clutch snipe onto Snoopy, because if not, that fight goes much, much worse, right? If that Raijin does not die, the Gilded Gladiators are probably able to chase so much more down. The Highland Ravens are not playing perfect smite by any means, and that should give the Gilded Gladiators a lot of hope that they can make it to late game.
They're taking advantage of it. They're feeling confident up in the jungle, and Khan is the first one on the engage. He finds the stun onto Screammmmm, but the follow-up is lacking, and Kyrmi caught out in the jungle. Venenu finds the snipe, and all of a sudden the ultimate comes through, and it's W key for the Highland Ravens. They take 2 off the board, and they're not done by a long shot if they can find these chase downs. It's going to be low health bars for the Gilded Gladiators. Won't be enough to step back towards this Pyromancer. The Highland Ravens, they've still got Fire Giant on 3. They still have room for this push.
Yep, they got to deal with the Titan first. Pyromancer drops, so Runic Bomb in play. This time going over to Screammmmm. But they have to wait for their own Titan if they're going to push up here. Fire is only here for 3 more seconds. How much can you really get done, especially when Ven is your tower damage? I'm guessing not much. This tower is going to take quite some time to go down without the help of the Titan, but Zapman's just pushing up mid by himself. Once again, you got to question, is this the best place to be? Looks like he knew he was safe for the time being and will then rejoin the squad. Keep your eye on Screammmmm, though. He's not here with the team. He's over on left, so right side Phoenix, not a great call.
Fire Giant off now for all the members of the Highland Ravens. This Titan pushing down the right-hand side, but should be felled before they get to go towards the Fire Giant. This is not EFG, once again. This was in game number 1, the deciding Fire Giant for the Highland Ravens. Of course, in game number 1, they felt much more in control. This game, the reins have kind of gone back and forth, Trelly. It's been in both teams' hands. Some good defenses from the Gilded Gladiators, maybe some question marks from the Highland Ravens. And if I'm the Glads, I agree. I think I've got a little bit more confidence with some of these question marks from the Ravens. Maybe you want to step up to this.
I mean, if the Ravens are playing grouped as a whole, there should be no problems. Luckily, Screammmmm doesn't get caught, and I was going to say, once again, is lurking over in left lane with no one to be found. This is another free Fire Giant unless Kana can go in for a steal. This will be his 3rd attempt at doing something this set on the Amaterasu and has not been able to find it just yet. Haddix usually is there on zone duty just to make sure that there's no shield coming through. Either way.
He's used his CC.
Yeah, either way. Wait a second, kind of getting very low here. How much do you use to chase this Ama down, though? You definitely blink, get the beads down, but do you go to the skies? That's the real question here, because nothing else is going to catch him. Unless the CC comes through, where's the snipe? Does he have it?
Oh my goodness, Cxnnahh oh my, I don't think they can chase him down, but they can certainly chase down mid. Awesome Jake. The focus turns onto him for a brief moment, but they lose a lot trying to chase down Cxnnahh there. Of course, you lose your tank ultimates if you're the Gladiators as well. This has got to be a defense up against the Fire Giant here. No wave for a couple more seconds. The Ravens are looking for the engage. Haddix, no blink available, but the damage is early on to Snoopy into the ultimate, but the damage is too much from Venenu, and he finds a double kill onto 2 from the Gladiators, and the Phoenix will be the next one to fall. Stuart and Awesome Jake there. Forward on the fight, low health bars here, and its damage, it's in. Kyrmi finds like a 5-man ult, but it's just temporary, forces him back. Highland Ravens still with the 5v3.
What I tell you, Frog, if you don't win the first fight, what are you going to do? How do you deal with this amount of sustain? The Highland Ravens, except for Haddix, they're looking full HP and they're looking at a Titan.
They're looking for the end if they can find it. Haddix on the up down, and Awesome Jake on the wave, but Venenu finds a rampage and takes down Kyrmi, and the Titan will be the next one to fall. Highland Ravens go up 2-0.
I mean, I love what the Highland Ravens did there, man. Besides the grouping, that was a big issue for me, besides the split push that did not need to occur, anytime Snoopy tried to cast Taiko drums, it was, hey, River's Rebuke up, here comes the snipe, you're deleted. You don't get to exist as a Raijin. I'm not sure if they baited into that pick. I'm not sure if they were like, hey, we need to bait Snoopy into picking it. Either way, this healing comp was cringe, seemed very difficult to try and play into. And the other thing is the Gilded Gladiators, they didn't really have a choice. They got Cursed Ankh, right? That is your play. You get Cursed Ankh and you all in. But if you don't win that initial fight, what? You just retreat and give everything up? That's what they had been doing essentially all game anyways. They had to make a stand somewhere, and unfortunately, they didn't have the damage to back it up.
Yeah, I really like what you said, because that healing comp is cringe.
Yep, big time.
That's a rough one. But they use it to get the win.
Of course.
And a win is important. They're up 2-0 now in the set. I mean, if you're the Gladiators, it's 2 very different comps. And I think 2 very different ways you lose the game, right?
Please understand, when you're trying to get your first set win, cringe is okay. I'm not hating on the composition. I'm just saying if I'm the Gladiators trying to think what went wrong, I mean, there was a lot of healing.
There was a lot of healing. Maybe they try to take some of that away. We'll have to see in game number 3 right after the break.
Never thought that you could be causing these problems. It smells so bright with eyes like these diamonds. Caution, I know I should have known. Right now you're not alone. I don't wanna get in trouble. See where you stand. I don't wanna see you crumble. To recall what we meant, all the words you never said, all the questions in my head, 'cause you're trouble, yeah. Yeah, you're trouble. Yeah, you're trouble. 'Cause you're trouble. Yeah, you're trouble. Running. Everyone says that I should get going, start running. But how am I supposed to run when I'm falling? Yeah, you're trouble. what we meant. All the words you never said, all the questions in my head. 'Cause you're trouble, yeah. Yeah, you're trouble. Yeah, you're trouble. 'Cause you're trouble. Yeah, you're trouble. Yeah, you're trouble, trouble, trouble. Yeah, you're trouble. 'Cause you're trouble, trouble, trouble. Yeah, you're trouble.
Well, the Ravens pick this one up as well. Mifflin, a 2-0 lead for them, and especially after how last week went 0-6 in terms of games, 0-2 in terms of sets.
Sounds not good.
Well, yeah, it was not. And then this week they needed something big to be able to come out and maybe to even stand up to what Hurry's interview had said as how he expected this set to go. And so far, they've been able to match that expectations.
Yeah, this is a tough one for the Gilded Gladiators because a lot of the weaknesses were not as grandiose and wide sweeping as they were in Game 1. It wasn't as if they just got out macro pace. They weren't present for like team fights. Like the issues were more on field and individualistic here in Game 2. In particular, just was not very impressed by Snoopy's performance. How do I word this? He got dog walked. he got dog walked by Ven. I'm gonna be completely honest here. This was the second time this game that it happened. Just when I think of the Ra v Raijin matchup, I just do not often envision Ra doing what happened, right? And
yeah,
you really need your Raijin to play well. That was a major point of the initial death segment. Was I thought this was a composition for the Gilded Gladiators that would be able to play through mid a little bit more consistently, but it happened fast and it happened early. And so the opportunities to play through mid certainly weren't there, and they were there for the Ravens. And once the Ravens started to take control of those team fights, this game ballooned out of control very, very quickly. 2,000 turns to 5, 5 to 10 in the span of about 6 minutes. Things just happened way too quick.
And that last one, I mean, even that play, like, it needs to be clear that that was a double snipe, right? Gets one kill, damages somebody else so low, and even though Vin didn't get all 3 of them, he then gets that double kill plus, the assist on that guy. Like, that Ra was about as beautiful of a Ra as you could be asking for in terms of play. 6-1 and 8, 26,000 damage, double what Snoopy's able to put up. He goes 2 and 7, and just a few thousand ahead of where even Haddix was. And so it just goes to show, I think, that the Ravens, like you said, in mid, we're doing incredibly well. I'm gonna censor, I guess not censor, just rewrite what you wrote. And
that is censorship, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I'm gonna censor what you said and put it in my own words. Zapman looks really good, but like you said, for a lot of it, they didn't have to, because by the time that anybody else came over, and for Zap specifically, Vin was already doing the damn thing, and he had so much setup around him that he wasn't worried about it. And so, with that, you've got to wonder a little bit about where the Gladiators go, because they had a good comp, and you had said maybe play through mid in Game 1. We were wondering what they were going to try and give us. So the question stands, what's up in Game 3? Well, we'll find out here in picks and bans. It will be once again the Gladiators on the first pick side of things. That's been pretty common today. So far, all the Hounds and then the Glads have just stuck with, I guess in this case it's also the Levi's and the Ravens, but just choosing to keep the same sides that they have been on. Picks and bans going a little faster than I would have expected early on. Yemoja, Hades, and Surtr banned by the Gladiators. They are pointing at Scream and claiming he is the culprit.
Oh.
And then they are going to ban, on the other side, Chernabog, Oleron, Ares, and it leaves the Athena open that the Gladiators have been banning out, and they pick it up instantly.
And so Athena in that first slot, I think, does open up the door a little bit. Has a lot of flexibility. If we're talking about the SPL as a whole, could be mid, could be jungle, could be support, could be soul lane. I think for the Gilded Gladiators, more than likely just headed for support. We haven't really got a whole lot of data of it playing elsewhere for them. The Highland Ravens, though, about to reality check the Gilded Gladiators in that the Gilded Gladiators, every game so far this set, were first picking that Amaterasu. We'll see whether or not the Highland Ravens put a similar amount of, I suppose, favor towards that pick. And the answer is no. Horus locked in immediately, and Thor to flank. So global presence, just all there for the Highland Ravens. The ability to reposition in team fight or catch people individually on the map, certainly incredibly high. And it does play in well to what the Highland Ravens have been doing, which has incorporated Horus a fair deal. These sustain-based compositions. I really think the Ravens have played very well around it. The fights have been going pretty quick for the most part, so we haven't seen the long, drawn-out battles around Fire Giants and Gold Furies, but if it were to come to that point, the Ravens would have significant advantage in that regard. But more so what I have seen from the sustain is the willingness to poke out in lane. I'll trade my HP bar as a resource for yours, back up, heal. You have to go back to base to heal. Let me roll through a Pyromancer. Let me roll through a Gold Fury. We've seen that a fair deal so far this set. Didn't love the Huang earlier. Still don't.
Yeah, and that one win that Huang has, well, that was the Gladiators. One loss that he has was the Gladiators. So they're the only team picking them up right now. And as you said, it's going to get locked in here. Well, I guess you kind of answered it in what Mike had said for this current meta is kind of crush people, and that Huang doesn't do that much. Raijin open, we just saw the Ra. It feels like Vin, in fact, Vin was playing Nuwa for a month coming into this. Are there any picks that you think, if the Ravens go for, Huang is going to have an advantage against?
Huang is really good against the melee mages. Anyone that wants to play up close and personal on wave, Huang has much more range. It has really good poke potential. Very strong levels 1 through 5. Really good at that portion of the game at just pressuring out. So some potential there. If you've got a team composition that's heavy on CC and that can burn through some of those CC immune resources, ultimates, or relics, Huang is just another form of initiation as well, with the dueling dragons being able to pull forward any individual target or multiple. Really does help out when you're in an aggressive position, which the Gilded Gladiators have found themselves in for the first 6 minutes of both games 1 and 2, otherwise not really having too many of those opportunities. So we'll see how it pans out from there. Otherwise, I do want to talk about the Ganesh matchup.
Yeah.
I really, really like Ganesh into Athena. I think Ganesh has two very distinct answers to Dash Taunt, and Athena's going to dash taunt no matter what. Doesn't matter how many answers you have. That's kind of her MO. So the answers that Ganesh has is, oh, you're going to dash taunt initiate? I'll throw Dharmic Pillars behind you. Let's see if your team's going to follow up, and where are you going to go now? Or, oh, you're going to dash taunt? Dash, you can't speak. Simply, the Dave special, you just can't talk to me now. There's no taunt. Go ahead, sit down, right? So I think Ganesh is very uniquely suited at dealing with a lot of the strengths of Athena.
Even if you get the... First off, you can interrupt the dash so easily. Like, Athena's dash, that charge time, you feel it. And then on top of that, Mifflin, even if she gets the dash off, you just silence the taunt.
Yep. And can't do anything.
And then so even if you do manage half of it, you don't get the full combo. Yeah, Ganesh is going to be a problem, I believe, for the Gladiators here. I'm fully on board with where you're at. Ravens ban out. Ratatoskr and Pele try to control mainly Kyrmi, as they have been in the second phase of bans. Raijin and Ra get banned out from the Gladiators, trying to control Venenu, who again has been playing all sorts of things. Nuwa again comes to my mind because she wasn't even like buffed. I remember you had asked, I think in the break room, you had gone and said, Vin, is there like something I don't know about this Nuwa you keep going to? Because I don't know, I just thought I'd play her.
He says, yeah, she's busted. And I was like, okay, if you say so.
And now we get a Cernunnos for the Ravens, which could be Zap, could technically be mid if they want to go for double Hunter, something that gives them a little bit of flexibility. But more often than not, we've been seeing it in the duo lane. Matchup versus Rom. Like, it feels like this one's not only an old one, but one that's been reoccurring. While a lot of these Hunters have been in turmoil, right? We don't really have like your Apollos out there. Once you start to get rid of some of them or take things like the Ishtar kind of away from the meta, people have been scrounging around. Hachi's been up there. Heimdallr, we saw Zap play earlier. And so going for the Kern feels like it's more in that top 3, top 5 cycle that we've seen over the last like 7 months.
Yeah, Kern maybe doesn't have the best matchup into Rom in lane, but certainly does bring a lot of value to the team fight. Plays into what I was talking about a little bit earlier, when you have a carry that could just also threaten relics. It's just very, very valuable. So having the Wild Hunt as that massive AoE polymorph can make it a little bit more difficult for the Gilded Gladiators in the 5-on-5. But if we were to evaluate the legitimate 1v1 in lane, if anyone's getting a solo kill, it should be the Rom. He's got the stim advantage. He should have similar levels of healing. Will have nearly as much as Cern because of the first ability of the changing the seasons. But I don't think there's a world where polymorph hits. I don't care about your cripple. Auto attack trade, I gotta drop you to 50%, and that's the win condition for Rom. Whereas Cern legitimately needs to secure his kill. Rom can just head up in the air with the Astro Barrage. So chase down potential all there too, and just has a little bit more ability damage that's confirmable from the Gilded Gladiators Hunter. Bobby talked about this a little bit earlier, no longer here today, but the Artio locked in. I think Artio's in a very good spot right now. Itemization seems to favor her pretty well. Her laning phase is not weak whatsoever, and she still is the god of I have infinite abilities, and by the time I finish casting them, they're already back up on the other stance. So a lot of damage output, really good CC lockdown, and that cripple field plays exceptionally well into this composition. Being able to stop, remove obstacles, or 50% of Horus's kid, or prevent a teleport from Thor, all going to be really important for the Gilded Gladiators. And credit to you, Gore. Called the Nuwa.
And you know what? I'm feeling good about it. And honestly, it's just because Vin, much like we had been talking about, hasn't really been playing quote-unquote the standard. And so, like, after Raijin, honestly, I'm not even sure what the mid-standard is right now. And it feels like that's kind of where they're...
And Pele.
Yeah, you're right. It's none of the mages. I was trying to go through, like, I guess, like, Merlin's up there. Raijin's kind of in that conversation. But yeah, it's Set and Pele. And with one of those gone, guaranteed in the Pele, and the other maybe not fitting the kind of composition they're going for. Do you like Nuwa? I mean, like what she brings to the table, do you think she works well with this draft, or does it just kind of feel like a Ravens flavor that, based on how they've played, they think they can get away with it?
I think that Nuwa is very interesting in that she runs completely diametrically opposed to the current meta, where Mike and a lot of the SPL players say, in mid lane and jungle, we're playing through pressure. I want to be able to get aggressive. I want to jump onto my enemy god. I want to push them back or jump into their buffs and this, that, or the other. Nuwa is not that. Nuwa is the, please jump on me. I'm going to spawn a soldier and I'm going to do 50% of your HP bar.
Yep.
Very strong counter initiation, very strong counter engage. If you are playing against a god that wants to be on top of you, Nuwa flourishes in situations like that, and also has the massive 5-man AoE unmissable ultimate that does massive damage come late game, so there's some value there. The issue I have personally with Nuwa is consistency. you're not connecting the stun every time.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, when you're relying on AI for you to aim properly, it's not really up to you either, not all the time.
Yeah, you don't get the full control that maybe you would want. It does feel like, though, I mean, Athena gets locked in, and then you get a Nuwa global ult, Thor semi-global, but we sometimes might as well call it global with how far around the map he can get. Horus semi-global. It feels like the Ravens just said, all right, bet, let's see what you can do with that Athena. We'll match the rotation, maybe not as heavily. You can definitely see, at least in the player cams there, I think the difference in atmosphere. I see smiles, laughing, conversation happening over in the Ravens
booth.
One side's
2-0.
Yeah, and the other side is quiet. And that can honestly maybe speak louder sometimes than how things are going. So right here, I'll ask you real fast. 3-0, or are we going to at least 4?
The Gladiators have a good comp. It comes out of play on field always, but betting man's going Ravens.
Betting man's going Ravens. We'll find out if they can live and lean towards the betting man. It's game 3, and it's do or die for the Gladiators.
Do or die for the Gladiators. They are looking to push us to 4, hopefully 5 if you're a Gladiators fan. Highland Ravens, they're looking to close it out right here and now. Still got Frog, still got Trelly. Doug in the background giving us the view of the map and a view of this brand new composition for the Gladiators, which I think I am on the side of Myth. I like this a bit better. I was a fan when I saw the Athena Hunbats and the Artio too. It looks like the fans like it a little bit better as well. Still a lopsided poll, to be sure. But better than the 80-20 that we got in game number 2.
Yeah, you'll take the extra percentage upgrade at that point. And I tend to agree. I think the amount of beads pull that the Gilded Gladiators have just in their top 3, you throw the Artio, you throw the Hunbats, you throw the Athena to the backline, you're going to be getting beads down, and that opens up the doors for just about everyone else, right, to try and follow up with that CC. Snoopy doesn't try to hit some of these free ults. He will have the backup essentially guaranteed because someone is getting locked down, right? At that point, you better be if you've got all that CC at hand. So I think that makes his job a lot easier. That was one of the main concerns I had with the Huang in game number 1 when he piloted it was, are you connecting with that ultimate? More often than not, the answer was no, but now that you got, this much setup, should be just fine. Question is, how much value can Hurriwind get? How much value can this Ganesha bring? Definitely going to be getting taunted back. But how much damage do you have? Scream.
Oh my.
He's got a lot of damage coming his way.
A lot of damage, and a bead's burned onto the Thor there early on. And I want to point it out early so that we can track it throughout the game. Snoopy, you went to this Huang game number 1. I know we weren't the biggest fan. I don't think he looked the greatest on it. And we were particularly critical of the build. This time already starting with something new, maybe trying to stack things up. And looking a little bit better with that pressure in the mid lane. This time he is the one poking Venenu out. And there's poke all across the map, as close to a solo kill potentially on that right-hand side between the Guardian Warrior matchup. I think it'll be interesting to see where we find that first bit of action. Who's the gank going to be focused on? Where are the junglers focused for these first set of buff invades? We've seen it on the left side for the shield buff, but right now they're on the right camps.
Yeah, Ven wants to try and hit that shining metal. Can't find it, so Snoopy lives to see another day. But at the very least, yeah, that poke is coming back. And I think the change, Nuwa giving her access to 2 minions this early on, makes her early game so much better. Can you find the shining metal or the double tap? Either will do, but the up down makes Scream in some trouble, but then gets the first blood and Snoopy gets the trade.
Oh my goodness, the trade
Look at Scream.
back
Look at
and forth.
Just sitting back like, oh, part of the plan, that's the first blood. He looks so smug, like that was all part of the plan. Hey, technically speaking, it ended up working out, right? The Highland Ravens get better out of that trade. Still, that look. If Kyrmi could see the look on Scream's face when he got that trade, he would have been pretty upset.
What an interesting interaction as well. Like the knock-up, the teleport to the hammer, the dive that comes through, and then Ven with the clutch shining metal to pick up the first blood. Looks like that action was indeed in the mid lane first off, and Snoopy not afraid to get involved. This time, though, might be Scream, who's immediately getting involved over on the left-hand side. Bit of body block on Nakana. He's got to use those cooldowns as well, but with Kyrmi over here, have to be careful if you're Haddix. Low health bars there right as the blue buff spawns. Looks like both junglers will back off, just try to secure their own farm.
Yep, Scream didn't have quite enough damage to pull that kill, and unfortunately mistimed the wall there with Haddix. I don't think it would have mattered too much, but maybe if you get the stun here, a little bit better, but the stun from Cxnnahh is just enough to close that gap. Wow, well played there from Cxnnahh. That's a very low stakes option, but it's the only play you had, and it ends up working out, getting that stun off. Man, on a knife set, it's balancing over there in solo lane. Kyrmi was actually able to pull to level 5 first because of how much time Scream spent over on the right side of the map. Where's Fear No Evil though? Where's your good target? So far, if you look to the right, everyone but Hurriwind has beads locked and loaded. So you're either looking towards duo lane or you're waiting until someone else pulls beads for you.
Well, this is a tough one, right? For pretty much all the Highland Ravens. We mentioned at the beginning of the game, the beads burn from the Gladiators has to be a core focus of how they're looking to play these team fights. You cannot be burning the same set of beads on an Athena taunt and a Fear No Evil. You can't like combine them, right? Because then you're just wasting value. And I almost think there's a lot of pressure on Awesome Jake to try and make this room early in fights so that Kyrmi actually has room to find value on this Fear No Evil.
I would say so as well. Awesome Jake should be dash taunting essentially off cooldown as long as he knows that Scream's nowhere near. In this case, he does not know that, right? Because Scream is in the jungle, looking to probably find, if I had to guess, Awesome Jake, right? You could pull the beads off of Stu. That's not terrible, but you're probably not finding a kill there, especially with Hurriwind's ult down. Looks like an ult on the Haddix comes through. He should be able to close gap here. No problems. You lose your beads, of course, but again, that was the first ult. Kyrmi has Jotuns already. He'll be able to come back. The question is, do you have the damage next time in 70 seconds where you can actually find that kill?
Yeah, that's why you get the beads first if you're Haddix. It may have seen, you know, he's the tank, he's a solo laner, but with that kind of pressure, you can absolutely expect Kyrmi to be over there trying to take advantage of that relic being down. And at this point, it's interesting from both of the junglers to see that lack of focus. Awesome Jake channeling the ultimate, maybe recognized a bit earlier that he was outnumbered there. Now might be a little bit of a scrap here towards these left camps. Ultimate gets dropped. I think that was beads from Snoopy just to immune the stun there. Dharmic Pillars dropped as well. A little bit more pressure for the Highland Ravens there in mid.
Now they able to pull the beads off, which is a big deal. So now Scream has a decent target. That Anvil of Dawn. You have to pre-Celestial Flight that ultimate. It takes a bit of wind-up time. So if you look up and realize you're being ulted, yeah, there's a chance. But you're not going to reaction jump it if you look down at your feet, right? You have to know that ultimate is coming. So Snoopy's going to have to be looking towards the skies and just keeping an eye on where Scream rotates towards. Because you don't want to be getting 100 to 0'd, especially with the help from the fire shards that Ven can go into at any moment with that new wall ultimate to try and help confirm that kill. But I still have my eye on Haddix's beads, right? He goes towards Runeforge. You've got so much lockdown with Cxnnahh. Like, maybe Kyrmi's whole play was to go for that one gank, hope it happens, and if it doesn't, give up. But you have at least one more opportunity to go in for an ultimate once your blink comes up in about 30 seconds. But Kyrmi's on the other side of the map. Not too focused on solo, not too focused on Haddix. More so looking to see if Ven was going to step out of the tower range, which he absolutely did not. Because Ven's got no vision, right? No reason to put yourself out of position when you don't know where that Batz could be.
Despite the fact that I think this is the earliest first blood and earliest trade of kills that we've had so far this set, this feels like the slowest game so far. We haven't seen any of those jungle invades try to come through. Neither of the junglers, I think, have made their way over to this left-hand side towards that shield buff. And it feels a little bit hesitant, which I'm surprised by, especially given Scream on the Anvil of Dawn, because it's like that. You have that semi-global pressure, and with the damage that Ven can do across the map as well, it almost feels like they should have a little bit more pressure, trying to force things a little bit harder, but it might be here. On that side, Hurriwind, he pops the hasten, will try and get the damage off early on. The snipes come through onto Zapman. Both ADCs down low, and the shield buff contested goes over to the Ravens, grabs onto Hurriwind. I don't think they can continue this chase, but will be a question of who wants it more if they choose to stick around here.
Yeah, Ben provided the ultimate to try and help with that damage, but it wasn't going to happen. Stu should be just fine for now, so that's all she wrote. We did see that Scream went in for an ultimate attempt onto Snoopy, but again, Snoopy just sort of watched that ult and said, yeah, bro, I'm not leaving tower line. Like, I have no reason to step forward, so you're not catching my beads out anytime soon. I'm just thinking about how easy it is, or I guess in this case how difficult it is for the Highland Ravens to initiate. If it's not off of a Thor wall, I mean, Hurriwind has been dropping Frenzy, dropping the Dharmic Pillars, and hoping that creates some sort of space. But so far, the Gilded Gladiators have not been too frightened about it. They just sort of bunker down, walk through the Dharmic Pillars, say, hey, you don't do much damage and you don't have much follow-up. You're not going to pull a relic just by dropping that ultimate. But for now, Hurriwind hasn't really left. He was spending a lot of time on the left side of the map. Maybe this rotation over towards mid can, you know, open up some space to try and go towards Snoopy. But Huang, definitely one of the safer mid laners you can go in this slot. Going up to the Celestial Flight just buys you so much time to get underneath tower.
I'm just still stuck on the fact that we watched Hurriwind walk over to left and self-pop the Frenzy so that he could get more damage. He
frenzied himself. He didn't care about Zap. He said, I am the damage here.
He wanted the damage onto the Dharmic Pillars, and that's certainly the energy you need from the typically passive Ganesh. Mifflin talked a little bit about it on the desk, this interaction between the Ganesha and this Athena. Both supports fantastic in their own right. We've seen quite a bit of both of them here in Season 10. I think the interaction specifically, sure, like you're enjoying into the taunt, but I mean, it's plays like that where Jake can get the taunt off first, and Hurriwind doesn't necessarily always want to be using the silence onto that taunt. I don't necessarily think it's like 1v1 counter matchup as it would seem.
No, you just are trying to help out. Hold that thought, though. Scream going up to the sky. Did Kyrmi hear this? It seems like it. He is booking it towards the tower. Will not be able to make it out. But Kana gets CC chain, and the ult is too little too late. Haddix picks that one up, and Kyrmi was getting pretty low there. And the double tap connects. Man, Kyrmi definitely wants to run away from this one. Haddix has the ultimate, but cannot get to the skies in time. Unfortunate for Kana. I thought that once Kyrmi called that out, the safety would come through, but a well-placed Thor wall is going to get you every single time.
Beautiful wall, absolutely, from Scream. That's the second time it's punished Kana out over there. The first time I think he was able to get away just by the skin of his teeth with a little bit of a stun, but Venenu has also been well-timed on these ults. Now, granted, hard to not be
massive
well-timed.
Skill shot there from Ven.
Hard,
you know what?
To not be
I regret giving credit to anyone except for Ven. Who cares about the Thor wall? That's easy. Ven clicked 4 immaculately there, and it was the whole reason the gank happened, and if we get to interview him after this, I will congratulate him.
Absolutely deserves the congratulations. Nuwa typically faming for their top damage, but on the left side of the fight, Zapman under some pressure, 2 out of 3 shots hit, and the dash off the mark. Stu looking for the damage back onto Hurriwind, and the taunt is there, half HP on both of the dual lane characters here for the Ravens. And Kyrmi and Scream have found a little bit of a scrap here over in the jungle, perfectly timed. And although the fire shards comes out immaculately from Ven, I don't know if it'll be enough to help out. Kyrmi finds a double, and Hurriwind gets taunted back in looking for 3, and Kyrmi grabs the triple on the left side.
And again, there's no rotation so many times, and I think this call was actually correct, because Ven recognized, hey, I ulted, right? I helped out the team. I'm not going to make that rotation all the way over to left. But I am amazed that Zap, knowing that Ven wasn't coming, walked up to that purple buff.
Just walked in.
I'm amazed that Scream hammers aggressively knowing that Ven's not coming, because who rotates in but Snoopy? And also that, Zap and Hurriwind has put themselves in such a bad spot. These are the kind of plays that you have to make. Hey, I've got fire shards, that's it. We're not fighting this. And that's the end of it. I think Ven made the absolute correct call. It's better to not rotate than to rotate late, 9 times out of 10. Ven gets a tier 1 tower. That's just going to be better for the team at that point. But why Zap walked up for that purple buff, and why Scream took the fight in the jungle, very shocking.
Awesome Jake, under some pressure here on this left-hand side. Will ult towards Kyrmi, but this will just be a full disengage if they can find it. A turnaround though, Scream gets deleted, and Snoopy finds the damage. Kyrmi up to 4-0 on this Hun Batz pick, and right as the beacon spawns, the fight has
Haddix.
Not stopped quite yet. Haddix and Zapman, the side lanes, joining the fight. And you can feel the damage coming through. It's 1, it's 2 for the side laners, and the Highland Ravens answer back with the trades, and they'll grab the beacon as well.
Yeah, but I'm going to bring up the lack of rotations. Unfortunately for Kana, you cannot match the rotation pressure of Horus. Looks like Hurriwind's going to stick around, grab that beacon, and now Fury is pulled. Stuart's nearby, though, has the snipes. Kyrmi has the Sacred Monkey Toss. No ultimate available. This is essentially some auto attacks from Stuart, or you're giving that one up and going for the snipes. The Highland Ravens get it for free, and they're able to walk back. Still, unfortunate for Cxnnahh, right? You can never match that global presence. Sitting there in lane is the best you can do, but if Haddix doesn't make it to that fight, the Gilded Gladiators win that for free.
Yeah, it goes a lot worse for them for sure. So good rotation there out of both Zapman and Haddix to make it to that fight. Well timed, and a 2-for-1 nets them the gold lead, or at least gold back to even, it feels like, with that gold Fury. Gilded Gladiators have felt in control thus far, and I think a lot of it has been through Kyrmi. It'll continue to be through Kyrmi. In fact, beads burned off his Zap, and the Dharmic Pillars right onto Kyrmi. Jumps onto the Shining Metal is there, though, and the Fire Shards will destroy, immaculately take down the enemy jungler. Huge 4 press for Venenu.
I love the big brain play, though. Kyrmi didn't make it, but you could tell he's like, do I just step on Dharmic Pillars and give the kill over to Hurriwind? Like, he was thinking about it. He got really close. He's like, no, there's no way. It's probably going to go over to Zap. And I don't want to do that because he was nearby and did a little bit of damage to me. So he ends up just dying to Ven's ultimate anyways. But once again, Zap dashes into his purple buff, had no idea Kyrmi was behind him. The beads were too little, did not matter. Kyrmi has been in the right place at the right time. The only unfortunate thing is you give a 4-0 shutdown to Ven for clicking 4. I mean, he didn't have to do anything at all to claim that kill. 2-0 and 3, a part of all 5 of the Ravens' kills. I mean, level 16 as well, top farm. Snoopy is going to be chunking. Kyrmi doesn't really want to get anywhere near Ven, and that's the issue. These melee junglers, when a Nuwa gets fed, just get 100 to 0'd anytime they get even hit by that clay soldier explosion.
Yeah, I mean, it's really got to be a full combo. Maybe you find Ven without beads in the perfect scenario, sure. But I think these side lanes are maybe the right place where you want to focus. And so far, you can't blame Kyrmi. He's having success, right? He was 4-0 and 2, now 4-1 and 2, of course, on that left-hand side. But he is a lot of the forcing factor for the Gladiators. And he's over here as well. The 5-man grouping onto Hurriwind. He's getting shredded down, and the Glads get the Pyro as well. 1 down to start the fight, and Scream may be next on the chopping block, but it's a turnaround onto Snoopy instead. And the Highland Ravens are grouped up for the chase. Kyrmi is the focus, and a dash from Zapman. Good peel, but Scream has it on the other side of the jungle, and Zapman finds the jungler. It's a 3-for-1 plus Pyro, and the Highland Ravens still in control.
Yeah, Gilded Gladiators were able to get the finishing touch on the Pyro, but for what, right? You lose 3 in the process, and I gotta say, this Horus has been so impactful. The amount of CC from just about everyone, but more specifically, these ultimates from Haddix have been putting him in the right position to set up for his team. Scream hits a big ult there. I thought he was going to get turned and burned. I mean, double relics was essentially 1 HP. Throughout the wall, in my mind, just as like a last-ditch effort to try and save himself up against Cxnnahh, and then hits the double tap onto Snoopy and finds the kill, as well as returning plenty of damage over to Cxnnahh. So just makes the best out of a bad situation. And then Zap and Haddix go massive there with thanks to the CC from this Horus. And Scream finding that extra cleanup kill in the jungle. I mean, I'm just going to keep my eyes on Haddix essentially, because it seems like wherever he is, he's going to be initiating fights, he's going to be setting up for his team, and there's going to be action that soon follows.
I'm keeping my eyes on Cxnnahh. It feels like he has been a big difference maker, but it's when he can join the fights, right? He cannot follow the ultimates from Haddix. Certainly, though, Kyrmi doesn't need either of the solo laners here. If he wants to start things going, he's going to try and turn some damage around, at least helps out with the trade. Might be! Oh my goodness, Stuart. He's got the ultimate, though, and will not be in range. Look for Awesome Jake. The silenced appeal is beautiful, and it's just a 1-for-1 on the left.
Wow, I'm trying to think, what could Stuart have done differently to get that extra bit of damage? I don't think anything. I think he started auto attacking immediately, used his one. Not much you can do there. Hurriwind looks like he's going to be a little bit too little too late. Has the Dharmic Pillars if he can get in range, but there, perfectly timed. The Gilded Gladiators grab the Oni Fury thanks to that pick. And Zapman once again, double relics the Fear No Evil. That's the big difference maker for me. This Cern has not had relics up pretty much all game, as Awesome Jake might not have his life up pretty soon thanks to that ultimate and the burst from Venenu. can't get close to this Nuwa, you will get your dash canceled.
The Dharmic pillars, and I think the body block from the clay minions there keep him trapped on the boundary. Beautifully done by the Highland Ravens. They grab yet another pick. We're pretty much even here, Charlie. I mean, 18 minutes.
Which is amazing.
8 to 10 in kills. You get a lot of damage difference. I think you can see the top 3 leaders there from the Highland Ravens. You're certainly feeling their advantage a little bit more in fights. But, I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is the closest it's been at 20 minutes. In the last 2 games, we've had 20-minute Fire Giants. We're gearing for a big fight.
We certainly are. Kyrmi was searching through the jungle, trying to figure out if he wanted to step forward and find a huge fight. But with Zap on the left side of the map, I'm thinking no Fire Giant pull for now. If anything, it might be a dive on Nakana. Where's the Thor dunk coming? Can you find the stun? Doesn't look like they're holding this one for long. It actually was Kyrmi, but Scream's off the mark.
And Villadon misses. The Scream has to try and escape. Haddix is out of there as well, but the Tier 1 tower falls. And the Highland Ravens, they don't get as much as they wanted, but they all get out with their lives in the Tier 1 tower in the process. All the while, Zapman over here on this left-hand side just farming up, trying to match this farm from Stuart, but that gives the man advantage here to the Glads. They've got the positioning.
They certainly do. Dash on a Ven, get the beads down. Ven is a bit of a trouble here. Does have to back up. He doesn't have ultimate, doesn't have any CC immunity. You don't want to be that close to Kyrmi.
Be that close to Kyrmi. They're looking for a pyro fight. Let's hop into a listening with the Glads.
That's a good Magi's.
Horus is ulting, are you Huang?
I ulted somebody. Come on, Horus.
Horus.
Watch this Ronaldo.
Stay together.
Surrender back. Yeah. Throw him. Throw beats. Turn dash. I'm trying to Thor. You follow me. I'm gonna get dash. Oh, did someone follow me? Oh, shoot. I met Thor behind. I'm medding. He TP'd in, he has no beats. I have a taunt soon. I'm gonna get a big taunt here.
Certain beats. Thor's in the air.
I'm back in like 10. I guess I just don't go in. I'm almost here if they keep chasing.
Good job.
Nice kill.
A close fight there for the Gladiators. The Ravens, though, they take 4 in the end, and they'll grab the Pyromancer as well. Just felt like they got separated there middle of the fight.
I mean, it seems like Ven is doing so much damage. He pulls his beads. I mean, Jake does an awesome job. I don't know why I said awesome. I really didn't want to say awesome because of Awesome Jake, but I did. Otherwise, I'm committed. He did an awesome job pulling the beads beforehand. No fire shards available. Ven has no bastion of safety, but Kyrmi could not connect the Fear No Evil. And because of that, Ven's able to stay in the back line, use the fog for his team, find some good burst damage. Zap overcommits greatly, as you would expect. You just hear Surtr in the back, and you realize, wait a second. Is this guy the jungler or not? Like, why is he so deep in the backline? He does get turned on. But you still have the issue of the level 20 Nuwa, who's been a part of 13 kills so far this game, and is just doing so much damage here for the squad.
That gave him 2,500 damage just on that one fire shard.
And it's going to be up again soon because he's got full CDR and still does that much damage. You could throw a Rod of Tahuti on the end of this build or an Ob Shard and continue that process.
And Villadon, channeled by Scream. Just for vision off the bat, but looks like it's going to be the Fire Giant puller, at least testing the waters if you're the Highland Ravens. But you lose that ultimate, you get the sense that you don't want to try and fight without it. Awesome Jake tries to burn a little bit of something, dashing in for a taunt there. But still, pretty close game. You see a quick fight there from the Ravens. They take the advantage. I mean, if you're the Gladiators, what are you taking away from that? How do you bounce back into the next jungle fight?
I mean, you got to find those beads immediately. Like, Awesome Jake needs to keep doing what he's doing, right? Dash taunt, dash taunt, dash taunt. We've seen it so many times.
Oh,
Zap, what? He's just dashing for shield buff for fun?
Oh, my goodness. He's surrounded by 4. No chance in this lifetime for Zapman. He'll get taken out essentially for free on the left-hand side. That'll signal for the Gold Fury. They've got to be careful that they don't give away a Fire Giant opening here, but even if they do start it, this will go slow without the ADC.
And that's the big difference maker, right? I think Zap's call was, wait, why are there 4 people here, Fire Giants up? But the Gilded Gladiators are saying, hey, we've got global presence. We know that there's someone nearby at the very least, because look at this, ward coverage. You see that? This time the Gilded Gladiators actually do have ward coverage in the enemy jungle. And that's an easy play to make. They don't have to worry about Fire Giant going down because, yeah, Ven's got decent DPS towards an objective, but not as much as a traditional ADC will have. So the Gilded Gladiators find an easy pick. The good news is that Zap didn't have relics up, so he didn't use relics, meaning he will have them for the next fight. But the Gilded Gladiators aren't going to do much with this position. They're just going to back up. They'll take that small win and probably try and translate that to a Fire Giant defense as the Ravens are going to unleash the Titans with this beacon grab. Might put a stall in the Fire Giant dance we thought we might see.
Those little mistakes, though, that's where you have to be careful on a game at this stage, right? Because this is, you could close it out right here if you're the Ravens. You could end the set, grab your first win. But if you're giving away small picks like that, I mean, imagine that that's on the right-hand side. That's close to the Fire Giant, and that seals the deal on some of these fights where you're giving away small mistakes like that. At this level of play, Zap cannot be giving away his life. I hope, holding on to those relics, that's definitely going to be a good thing. But as this Fire Giant ticks closer and closer, that 30-minute mark, still a ways away, but it's the first time that we haven't had one of those 20-minute Fire Giants, and I think it's because both teams recognize the gravity of this next fight.
They certainly do. Upgraded starters for both ADCs. So it looks like both of them will be leaving the duo lane and heading over towards Fire Giant as both Titans head over to left lane. So those will be left alone for the time being. And it's a Pyromancer start here. Hurriwind wants to hold on to the bubble, immediately loses it though, thanks to Awesome Jake, who once again on point with the dash taunt.
Positioning around the Pyromancer for both of these squads. And the Highland Ravens, looks like they feel like they have the advantage into the air. Let's go into a listen it with the Ravens.
I can blink.
Huang did not Aegis.
Watch out the Hubbard's blink on left side.
Healing you guys.
That's my beats for you, Huang beats.
I still have all here.
Can heal us up.
I have ulti and put 40 again.
Yeah, I can wrap here for a stun.
Han is in FG. Han is in FG pit.
You heard Zap, guys. We should
Wait
just
for
chill.
Thor ult.
I'm fine.
I can ult on top of this.
Han is coming. Han from FG. Han from FG pit. Guys, can we look at Han here? Han behind.
Yeah, I'm on.
I farmed him. I'm ulting for him. I'm ulting. He's dead. Can we go Artio now?
You got dash.
You Huang no Aegis. You Huang no Aegis. If you find him.
I'm ulting. I'm behind him. He's trapped.
I'm with you.
That's his 3. I have a stun.
I'm on the Artio. I stunned the Artio. I farmed the Artio.
Knocked him up. They're reinforced rock back here.
Do you have anything, Stream?
Stun one. Rama beats.
We can dive. Look at us, boys. Look at us.
Look at Athena. Healing you guys. She's body blocked.
Look at you, Huang.
I have a 3 for you.
Athena now.
3.
I have ulti up to
farm
the Rama. I can ult Ven.
She has no beats.
Somebody tank for me.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Oh, he's gonna try to stack.
It's okay.
3 and 1. Stunning when he lands. Knock up when he lands.
Nice wall.
That's it. That's it. Living.
Still tanking. We gotta wave. We can end.
You heard it there, folks. They're gonna look to end that.
Kyrmi has
Phoenix
ult.
fight is perfect, but they still need to find the end if they want to push this down. Low health bars, but a minion wave.
Yeah, no way.
And they will slow down. They will back off. And Trelly, the target focus, that team fight, you heard Hurriwind the whole time. And they're always on the CC. That communication was awesome.
I mean, I think the big issue, of course, is that Snoopy gets hit by the Thor ult before the fight even starts. He gets half health, and Scream the whole time has the wraparound. And the other thing, that Ven was on point, and he knew exactly where Kyrmi was the whole time. He said, Hun at fire, Hun's behind. Can we go on Hun Batz here? Immediately Scream walks up, essentially 100 to 0's Kyrmi with help from the fire shards, and now it's a 5v4, not to mention Snoopy's beads are gone, right? That's the big difference maker. You're fighting from a disadvantage from the start because of that aggressive play from Scream. Now you've lost to mid Phoenix. The Highland Ravens are already up towards the Fire Giant. Beads and Blink still on Kyrmi. Besides that, no relics available for the Gilded Gladiators, and they're starting out chunked because Ven's throwing out that ultimate.
A little bit of a global ward there on the ultimate for Venenu. This mid Phoenix down means that the Gilded Gladiators are going to have to keep this mid wave pushed if they want to contest this FG. And it looks like they do. They are positioned for it. It looks like they're going to prioritize a little bit of ward coverage as well. That's the right thing to do. Feels like 2 fights in a row now around the jungle here, though, that have gone awry for the Gilded Gladiators. And my focus still has to be on Kyrmi. The fight centers around him. A good Fear No Evil, you might just win the game. A bad Fear No Evil, no Fear No Evil, you might just lose it.
You certainly might. And because of that, Relic's important. Ven, no beads 30 seconds. Zapman, no nothing for 30 seconds. You don't see the immediate pull. They're playing this one slowly. They want to wait until, number 1, that fire wave pushes up, and number 2, these relics come back up. I'm keeping my eyes as well on the beats. Timer for Stuart. He has nothing for 20 seconds, so has to watch out anytime Scream goes to the sky. I bet you the second we see Zap's relic come off, the Highland Ravens go in for their pull. They're just playing this one slow. No way you stall all the way for EFG. You're just waiting for that one moment where Scream can go to the sky, look for an ult to start this fight off, or the Gilded Gladiators, they're already pushed up pretty far. I'm thinking this is the fight the Ravens want.
They're onto the Fire Giant. It's down to half HP, but they have to pull off, and the fight is split. Dharmic Pillars onto a couple, and Ven grabs the first kill onto Cxnnahh, follows immediately, and Snoopy ends for a double kill onto Zap. Haddix takes down Stuart, and that, folks, is all she wrote. Kyrmi, the only remaining member, but he will not be enough. And a triple kill on Zap, a deicide for the Highland Ravens. That seals the deal, a clean sweep for the Ravens.
Yeah, I was puzzled by the aggressive positioning there. I mean, you clear waves, you play defense, but the fact that the Gilded Gladiators took the fight to the Ravens just seemed puzzling, right? The tanks grouped up for Hurriwind to get a fat ultimate there. The Dharmic Pillars really do shred your tanks down and make it so much easier to just burn through them. And thanks to the target selection and the single target CC, the Ravens picked that fight apart.
Yeah, it was not... It felt off the bat, it felt like not a bad engage because their focus was split. They had half health on the Fire Giant. They had to find an engage in the back of the fight. And finally, maybe they wanted to be on the front foot. You want to guarantee that value from the ults off the bat, but they waited until all of the relics came back up on the other side too,
yep.
And it just felt like you really felt the gold lead in that fight.
And I think, as you said before, you highlighted it quite well. You gotta find value from Fear No Evil. Kyrmi gets a wraparound, he blinks in. Where does he ult? Right where Scream was. Right where he was about to be before he hammered away. Once he left, the ult just misses. Unfortunately, there was just no follow-up there, and then again, split difference. The tanks are gone, Kyrmi's too far back, the carries are getting dunked on by Scream because the fight's still going. Just didn't look great. However, the Highland Ravens get their first win.
They do. They get their first one. Gilded Gladiators still looking for theirs, but the Highland Ravens, they take a clean sweep and grab their first win. That'll do it for me and Trelly. We'll throw it back to the desk to break it down.
2 times the kills, 2 times the gold, and a bite to match the bark from before the game. The Ravens come out 3-0 the Gladiators. And Mifflin, game 1, dominant. Game 2, pretty dominant. Game 3, you'll never guess it, but pretty dominant from the Ravens. They just seem to match that energy. And again, they were kind of sure of that, at least feeling confident about it coming into today, but to get that win on the board is big for them.
I would say game 3 was the best performance we'd seen from the Gladiators this entire set. It was much closer throughout. It really did come down to some of those late game team fights, a bit back and forth, where one team would get some kills, stick around for objective, overstay, trade, then they'd take turns doing that. Until eventually the Highland Ravens went out on 2 or 3 team fights in a row very cleanly. It seemed to me the turning point was when Scream said, you know what, these dunks, I think they're all actually just going to hit Snoopy from now on. And things really did clean up after that point. I thought that the Gilded Gladiators did show a good deal of improvement throughout the set, but not enough to catch up to the Highland Ravens, who were just by far the better team here today. Their team fights were more concise. Their target selection was good. I don't think Ven ever felt any pressure in the back line because anyone who came close to him got eviscerated, and anyone who straggled away got eviscerated by fire shards as well. So easy stuff there for the Highland Ravens. I mean, Hurriwind calls a shot, said it should be easy, and I mean, we'll hear in the interview whether or not they think it was.
And I think the biggest thing for them, and this is something, again, going into standings talk, things like that, which we're going to cover maybe a little bit more after the interview, but this is a huge win to get, right? Your in-divisional matchups are going to come a little more often, but you need to win as many as you can to try and make sure you can make it towards the top. This is a good spot to be in for the Ravens to finally get one on the board.
And if we're going to play into the metagame a little bit, winning against the Gladiators is the most important thing to do in Division because Gladiators wins come seldom. Yeah. So anyone who does lose them, there's a little extra bit of weight behind it. So the Highland Ravens, making sure they don't fall down there. I'm sure this whole division would probably describe if any of those sets are gimmies. it would be the Gilded Gladiators who do find themselves currently at the bottom of the power rankings, so you're right to say that this is a very important win for the Ravens.
And I believe, looking at the future, I mean, tomorrow it's going to be Dragons, right? Next week we've got Ferrymen, and I believe Leviathans are like the next couple of matchups that are coming up for the Ravens. So a lot that are very important matchups, but again, across the board, right? They're going out of division for a few of those. And so trying to, or actually all three of those. So picking up those wins, just as important. This could be the beginning of a streak that is necessary for them if they want to climb to the top. That being said, then maybe getting ahead of themselves. Yeah.
Streaks,
every streak starts at 1.
No, you're right. You're right. Every journey of 1,000 steps. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And the big,
you're just right.
And the big important thing for them, Mifflin, as always, is getting that first win under the belt, which they have done here today. But the question you had posed was it, quote unquote, as easy as maybe they thought it would be? We'll find out straight from the horse's mouth. We got Venenu standing by for an interview.
Oh, horse.
Thank you so much, Gormizer. That's how we've got Venenu from the Highland Ravens. Congrats on the first win. I have to ask Mifflin's question. I have to, right? Hurriwind in the interview up top, I think, said it would be easy, but also said that that's how you guys are going in mentally to every one of these sets. Did you have a little bit more to prove against the Gilded Gladiators, or was it just another day in the office?
Probably just another day. I mean, we obviously lost 0-2 last week, falling down to Warriors. I mean, we're just readjusting with a different player and a really different play style in ADC. So we just really needed to, just make sure we got a win today. I think it's pretty important. But overall, I mean, it's just going to take some time to do a little bit of readjusting for the team. And yeah, I mean, we're just playing with time here. There's no rush to be the best team right now at all. It's all about the time for Worlds. So yeah.
I mean, that's definitely the mindset that I think you want to hear. You're focused on the road to Worlds, and that's what this is, the road to Worlds. I mean, I do have to ask, right? 3 games in now with the new play style that you guys were looking for with Zapman. Does it feel like it's adapting well, like it's gelling well, and that's sort of the play style that's the switch up that you guys were looking for?
Yeah, so we didn't get to scrim with Zap that much. I think we scrimmed like 2 times last week when we faced Warriors and Kings, so a small adjustment there. But going into this week, like, everybody's been really putting in effort and really tryharding in scrims, which is getting us a better rundown on how we should be performing and where we want to be. Everyone's just being really critical of each other and making sure that we're playing a clean game as often as we can. So I mean, just an adjustment period. I mean, we're definitely going to be a lot better in the long term. Just going to take a little bit of time to get there. That's all.
Definitely trying to ramp up. I got to ask you personally, because I've been watching the picks and bans, a lot of the other teams, and you are one of the mid laners that has poked in around the assassin mid meta a little bit, but this set in particular, pulling out 3 mid mages, some interesting picks as well, ones that we haven't seen as much on other mid laners. What's your take personally, and maybe your team, on the mid lane meta right now?
I mean, it's pretty similar to what everybody else is playing. For my idea of what the meta is, there's obviously certain things that you can do to those specific stuff. Today, though, there's just not really the game plan for us today. Just really wasn't to play any of the assassin mids. If we wanted to play the assassin mids, just a risk that we didn't really want to take today, and just play a clean game on what we have been practicing and really playing for. But yeah, I mean, we'll see tomorrow. I'm sure it's going to be a lot different tomorrow. So we'll have to see.
It feels like the meta changes every day at this point. Well, Fen, thank you so much for coming out. Congrats on the win once again, and we'll throw it back to the desk.
Always encouraging words to hear from the Ravens, and again, what they're going to play and what the meta might be. We'll see tomorrow as they take on the Ravens. But Mifflin, it has been a very interesting first day of Week 2, and it's going to continue on that path. I was going to say keep and continue. And they fuse together to a new word. As tomorrow we'll be kicking things off, Warriors Leviathans, as just mentioned, Dragons and Ravens will be playing second set tomorrow, so we'll get to see them a little bit more this week and maybe heat check them against the other division, the Order division. And then Sunday, Ferrymen Hounds, which is going to be the match of the week. See if the Hounds can bounce back. Started to show their fangs a little bit in that first matchup today against the Leviathans. Now we got to see if they can bring that energy and then some up against the Ferrymen. And then to close out the week, the Kings will be going up against the Gladiators for their doubleheader in our first look and second look, I believe, at the Kings for this week in this phase. And so a very interesting phase so far, and very short games. I mean, we've had 1 5-game set, 1 4-game set. Otherwise, it's all been 3-0s, and that has led us to this position for the standings: 2-1, 1-0, 1-1, and 0-2 in the Order division. And then the Chaos Division, of course, still up at the top. Undefeated right now are the Warriors. And they have a set a little bit later this week to try and keep that going the way. Tomorrow morning to try and keep things going their way. Kings 1-0. Ravens now 1-2. Taking an all-important, all-coveted third-place spot, moving themselves up 1 in the standing. So, ultimately, some small shifts today, but even more that could go on throughout the weekend. And I guess I'm going to throw you for tomorrow, where we have Warriors Leviathans to start things off, Ravens Dragons. Which one of those two are you maybe thinking a little bit more about?
Oh, man. I mean, the battle of the top, obviously very interesting between the Warriors and the Leviathans. The Leviathans, I think, in a decent position where they could challenge the Warriors and potentially stop their 5-game win streak. I'm sure a lot of Jake fans preying on the downfall of the Uni Warriors would hate to see that streak continue any further than it is. But and it's something I said during the waiting room. It's something I'll continue to say. It feels like the Ravens games right now, just by where this team is primed, are just so important for the entirety of the league, where they have that potential to punch up, where they can still drop games to lower-seeded teams as well. It feels like every single one of those matches so important. It's essentially what I was talking about a little bit earlier with the Gilded Gladiators matches and how theirs are important because they're consistently losing. I don't like beating on the Gladiators, but it's really important for standings. Yeah. The Highland Ravens, of course, have that potential to punch up and down, so those are, I would consider them like the swing games for standings.
And it's going to be really interesting to see what ends up happening for them, because as Vin said, all of this is kind of leading up to, but builds up into Worlds.
Yep.
And it's just when your team decides to pop off. We've seen some teams absolutely dominate a phase and then fall at Worlds and vice versa. And so we'll see where these teams end up. But from myself, from Mifflin, everyone here in production, and of course all the other casters, everyone here at Hi-Rez Studios, thank you all so much for tuning in. And we'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern as we kick off day 2 and continue things going. So have a good night. We'll see you in the morning.